You're watching the home of the Super Bowl, America's sports leader, NBC.
This is the NFL on NBC with host Greg Gumbel and co-host Ahmad Rashad.
Our crucial doubleheader in the jam-packed AFC East starts in Miami as the Dolphins, a game off the lead, host the first-place New York Jets. It's a marquee coaching matchup between two of the NFL's best. Bill Parcells has turned things completely around in New York. His only loss since Week 3 came against Jimmy Johnson's Dolphins. Quarterback Glenn Foley will get his first start of the season for the Jets, replacing Neil O'Donnell. The Dolphins are hopeful that Dan Marino will start, despite a sprained left ankle that limited his playing time last week. Part 2 of the AFC East double dip is in Rich Stadium as the Buffalo Bills try to avenge a 33-6 whipping at the hands of the New England Patriots. Unfortunately for Drew Bledsoe and the Pats, that win in Foxborough 4 weeks ago is New England's only victory since September. Today, they look to get on track. Two of the AFC's best meet in a key game in Jacksonville as the Jaguars, tied for the AFC Central lead, entertain the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs' defense, bolstered by the return of Derek Thomas, has led Kansas City to the AFC's second-best record at 7-2. Today, they have their hands full with Mark Brunell and the second highest-scoring team in the NFL. Hi once again, everyone. Welcome to our studios here in New York. Greg Gumbel along with Sam Weish and Chris Collinsworth. Ahmad Rashad will join us shortly. Let's get right to a busy day. Football's most hotly contested division is the AFC East. 4 teams within a game of each other, and today, all 4 teams face each other. The biggest surprise among the group, the New York Jets, who visit Miami today to play the Dolphins. The Jets lead the Wild East by a game over the Dolphins, the Patriots, and the Bills. And with a report on New York and Miami, Bob Trumpy. Bob.
Greg, thanks very much. Here in Miami all week long, fans have wondered, is Dan Marino going to play? Well, we're not going to speculate. Randy Cross is standing on the sideline with Jimmy Johnson with the answer.
Thanks, Bob. Jimmy, the situation with Dan Marino, you said all week long, it's a game day decision on his ankle. Well, it's Sunday.
Well, Randy, Dan was able to practice some Thursday and Friday, and he was not at 100%, but he wants to go, and so we're going to go ahead and start him. We're going to watch and see if the mobility is a problem. If it is a problem, then we'll go with Erickson, but we're going to start Dan, and hopefully we can go with him the whole way.
All right, thank you very much.
All right.
As far as the New York Jets are going, though, the story's also at the quarterback position, Glenn Foley for Neil O'Donnell. My take on the whole thing is twofold. One, hey, this is Bill Parcells' team, and this is a message to everybody on that Jet football team that nobody's job is safe. For me, I look at quarterback changes 3 ways. 3 people or 3 groups of people like backup quarterbacks. One's the media, because it's a great story. 2 is the fans, because they always think they got a better guy as a backup. And 3 is opposing defenses, because opposing defenses know that backup quarterbacks press. If Glenn Foley presses, the Jets are in trouble. Back up to you, Bob.
Well, Randy, I don't think he likes the idea, neither do I. Glenn Foley making his 4th career start. He is 0-3 as a starting quarterback on a team that leads the division for the first time since 1986. Greg, what is Bill Parcells thinking of?
Trump, I'm glad you asked, and I know that my friend Chris disagrees with both Bob Trumpy and Randy. We'll hear about that in just a moment. First, let's hear from Bill Parcells on that quarterback switch. He talked about it with Chris Collinsworth.
I look at the quarterback position in one way. Is the quarterback able to get his team in the end zone? And if he can do that, then however it looks, however it manifests itself, if he has the capability of getting his team into the end zone, then I judge him as being a good quarterback.
Does it ever get any easier to have to make the choices that a head coach has to make?
I take a very short-term view of this. I'm saying we're trying to play Miami Sunday. Okay, what can I do to get that team in the best shape to play Miami Sunday? And I'm not worried about Monday. I'm worried about just Sunday. And I think once you understand that mentality about me as a coach, I'm fairly predictable after that.
That is as plain and blunt an explanation as you can expect from Bill Parcells on this quarterback change, and the numbers bear him out. Take a look at what Glenn Foley has done since week 6, and Neil O'Donnell. Foley 3 times better at putting touchdowns on the board than Neil O'Donnell, and you can understand why Parcells has made the decision he's made.
And I totally agree with it, as you well know.
Yeah.
I've been preaching this one for the last couple of weeks. But Neil O'Donnell's a guy who is not going to throw the interceptions, but he also is so cautious that tends to slow down this offense at times, too. He takes a lot of sacks with his very deliberate style, doesn't want to make the big mistake. The safety that he took against the Patriots, I think, was the last straw for Bill Parcells. That really started the downfall. But he's also made some very unveteran-like mistakes, crossing the line of scrimmage and throwing the pass. In my mind, it was clearly time to make a change and see what this offense now is capable of with Glenn Foley, because they have some very exciting weapons on the offensive side.
All right, Sam, Dr. Doom here has told us what Bill Parcells doesn't like about Neil O'Donnell's play. What does he see in Glenn Foley that he likes?
Well, before we get to Glenn Foley, let's pay attention to what Bill Parcells is saying. He's not dismissing Neil O'Donnell for the year, just for this Sunday. But let's break down Glenn Foley. What is Bill Parcells seeing in this guy that puts him in the starting lineup? Right here, you'll see him drop a 5-step retreat, make a token fake, and then he's going to set himself very Joe Montana-like in his retreat, and then a lot of pace on the ball right between 3 New England defenders. That's telling Bill Parcells he's confident in his accuracy as well as the velocity he can put on the ball. Here he's going to fake away from where he's going to throw the ball to Keyshawn Johnson on the left, but the key players here are the linebackers. He's going to have to find the receiver, throw between the linebackers, and not lead him. Put it right in his body so he doesn't stretch him out on the big hit. On the next play, he's trying to hit Kyle Brady down the sideline, but he's not open right away, so he has to reset himself. Very difficult. It takes an athlete to do this. It doesn't look like a tough job, but when you're throwing the ball that far down the field, you've got to put a lot on it. This was actually completion and then ruled a fumble. And here's pure athletic ability. Out of the shotgun, just find the laces and get the ball off as soon as you can. This was the play preceding the field goal that won the game for them against the Ravens.
You know, Sam, I think the key point here, though, is that Bill Parcells is not playing for the first round of the playoffs. He doesn't care about that. Here's a guy that's trying to take a shot at winning it all. And I think Glenn Foley gives this offense a chance to upgrade to the point where they just might have that chance.
All right, gentlemen, at 4 o'clock Eastern time, it'll be game 2 of our doubleheader. It matches New England and Buffalo. Both these teams are 5-4. But while the Bills have basically alternated wins and losses all season, the Patriots have been in a tailspin. 4 losses in 5 games after starting the season 4-0. With a report, Paul McGuire and Phil Simms.
All right, thank you, Greg. I think the big news still up here in Buffalo is the fact the Buffalo Bills last Friday, 2 days before game, switched from a 3-4 defense to the 4-3. What it's done, it caught Miami by surprise. It's really helped out Bruce Smith. It's enabled him to go and play the edge outside the offensive tackle, helped him on the running game, and what it really does, it helps him get to the backfield just a little quicker to make those sacks. That's what they'll need today against the New England Patriots, try to sack the quarterback. Also, it makes it very hard for the other team to double-team Bruce Smith when he's in that situation so wide. A lot of changes have happened here for the Buffalo Bills. It's been good. The New England Patriots, losers of 3 in a row, they got to make some changes too, Paul.
Well, Pete Carroll said we have to make a change. They did. Sam Gash, when the New England Patriots a year ago, when they were going to the Super Bowl, Sam Gash was a fullback. He got hurt. Well, he's going to start. That's the major change. They wanted to put somebody with an attitude. This guy's a tough guy. Sam Gash is a tough guy, and they want to put him in the backfield. They want an attitude that he has. They talked to the players on the team. We talked to the coaches. Every single person's happy about it. They said, this guy brings us that attitude with the offense that we really need. Now, there's one other thing. When it's talking about attitude, I'm thinking about Chris Collinsworth. You know, when NBC hired him for the studio, I always thought that Chris Collinsworth was going to bring an attitude to the studio.
Has he?
No. Greg?
Incidentally, EMS services are on the way to tend to Phil's shoulder, but this whole problem that the New England Patriots have had, you said early on, Sam, that Pete Carroll shouldn't start out being a nice guy, that you'd have to start the other way around, and he started to change a little bit.
Well, yeah, you have to change. You're talking about change with this ball club, including Pete. You can't start out being that nice guy and then toughen up. It's much easier to be tough and then loosen the strings when you need to, but let's don't throw these guys out just yet, because things aren't quite as bad. In the last month, not very good, 1-4 after that 4-0 start, but they, compared compared to this time a year ago, they're gaining more yards, they're giving up fewer yards, they're making more sacks, they're giving up fewer sacks, and they play the Buffalo Bills today who can't score. And won their last 2 without touchdowns. I picked the Packs today.
Okay, but they're not just not winning games like they were a year ago.
And I want to say this with attitude here. Right, I'm going to say right now. Scared me. The Patriots have really struggled trying to run the football on first down, and that's what they did very well a season ago. But they just have been in too many second down and long, third down and long, depending on Drew Bledsoe too much to make plays. 410 yards of offense last week and only 18 points. They've sort of become the Dallas Cowboys of the AFC, just not scoring touchdowns.
All right, guys, 4 more. Let's go over to Ahmad.
Yes, the University of Oregon beat number 6 Washington yesterday, 31-28. I want you to know that. Anyway, the Dallas Cowboys have lost 4 of their last 5, and there's been much speculation about the future of Barry Switzer. With more, we go to Will McDonough in Buffalo. Will.
Thanks, Ahmad. A story of the week, of course, is down in Dallas where a lot of rumors about Barry Switzer being fired. I talked to the owner, Jerry Jones. He says that's not going to happen. No matter what, Barry Switzer will be the head coach of the Cowboys the rest of the season. Jones told me there is hope that fullback Darryl Johnson will be able to come back and play next year after his most recent neck surgery. A lot of people think that wouldn't happen. And also said that Leon Lett is doing very well coming back from his suspension. That suspension is up 2 weeks from now, and Jones hopes the National Football League will reinstate Leon Lett, a fine defensive tackle. Well, let's move on to San Francisco. Well, there possibly is a miracle in the making. Jerry Rice, their fine receiver, is way ahead of schedule and has come back from serious knee surgery after the first game this season. I talked to team president Common Policy last night, and he said that Rice might be able to play before the season's over. But, however, don't look for the same Jerry Rice you've seen in the past. If anything, the 49ers will bring him back as a part-time player, really weaning him towards next year and what he can do in the future. Another reason for the amazing success of the Jets this year has been their special teams. They tell you in pro football, you can tell how much a team cares about the way they perform on kickoffs. Right now, the Jets in kickoff coverage and kickoff returns in the AFC of 15 teams rank first in both of those categories. A year ago this time, after 10 weeks, they were 14th and 15th. And of course, let's finish up on a nice note here in Buffalo. Chris Spielman came by the team headquarters before he went to have neck surgery in Ohio. He stopped in on head coach Marv Levy and with tears in his eyes apologized to Levy, saying, "I'm sorry I wasn't able to finish out the year for you." Then he went upstairs and met with general manager John Butler, and Butler noticed he had the number 306 written on his baseball cap, and Butler said, "Chris, what's that about?" He says, "It's 306 days from now until the first game next season." And Ahmad, you and I and everybody else wish Spielman well. Back to you in New York.
All right, thanks, Will. Here's a look at the rest of our show.
Still to come, Andre Rison is playing for his 6th NFL team, but it appears he's found a home in Kansas City. We'll have the story of Buffalo's Antoine Smith, a terrific young running back and a man deeply committed to his family. An injury has finished Pepper Johnson's season for the Jets, but his coach is still thinking about it.
I like Pepper Johnson because he likes football a lot. This is not a job for him. He likes to play the game. He would play these games in parking lots on Sunday morning. He would do it for nothing.
And we'll bring you Mike Ditka's visit with Joe Gibbs when the NFL on NBC continues.
The Jacksonville Jaguars are tied with the Steelers for the AFC Central lead. The Kansas City Chiefs are a game behind Denver in the AFC West. A good matchup in Jacksonville. With a report, here's James Lofton. James.
Thanks, Ahmad. Normally, coaches wait until maybe December to start talking about playoffs, but this game has playoff implications written all over it. As you mentioned, the Kansas City Chiefs are just one game behind the Denver Broncos, and also Jacksonville. They're right there with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and a lot of teams are in the playoff hunt. And what this game really means is one team will be able to leapfrog over the other team into playoff position. And for the Kansas City Chiefs, they might look down the road and say, well, we're playing the Denver Broncos next week. But that won't happen. This team will be galvanized because they're without quarterback Elvis Grbac. And stepping in today will be Rich Gannon, only his 43rd start of his career. Gannon has been a 500 quarterback, and if he can play 500 ball while Elvis is out for 4 weeks, that may be good enough for the Kansas City Chiefs. And one thing, Marty Schottenheimer said, I'm going to play rookie wide receiver Kevin Lockett. And Marty does not like to play rookie wide receivers, but he's going to take a chance on this guy. Back to you, Ahmad.
All right, thanks, James. Now, Chris, your take on Kansas City.
You know, I never liked to watch the Chiefs play. I'll just be honest with you, because they were kind of boring on the offensive side. But now they have playmakers over there. Andre Rison has been spectacular. They have this kid at tight end, Tony Gonzalez, who last week went up and made a sensational catch in the middle of the pack, a former basketball player. Marcus Allen with the halfback pass. I mean, these are the type of plays that we just never saw out of Kansas City in the past. And they're just much more creative on the offensive side. But the thing I really like is just how tough this team is and the heart they've been showing. I don't know how in the world Ted Popson holds on to this football. It's an amazing catch. Rich Gannon at the end of the game with everything on the line, a quarterback who's going to get the start today, diving for the first down, ignoring his body. I just really have liked what I've seen out of the Kansas City Chiefs this year.
And Marty always had a reputation of being conservative. Is he changing now because of the players he has?
Yeah, I think so. And he always had the reputation as sort of playing to get in the playoffs. And now I have a feeling he's taking a shot at winning the whole thing, which I never really felt like he did in the past.
I like watching him play.
Me too now.
Let's go over to Greg.
All right, Ahmad, thanks. Speaking of the Chiefs, as you were, Andre Rison is playing for his 6th team in 9 NFL seasons. The high point was a Super Bowl win last year with Green Bay, but there have been some troubling low points. Today, he returns to Jacksonville to face the Jaguars, a team which released him last season. I spoke with the enigmatic Andre. You have a history. In fact, teams talk about your history on occasion. And this isn't news to you. You know you were thought of in some areas as a troublemaker, or that you were a problem ball player, right?
I guess that's what you would say. I guess that's what it is.
Would you agree or disagree?
I would disagree. I would always have to disagree. No one says anything about, well, in this last year in Atlanta, that I've become the all-time leading receiver in this organization in 4 years. No one talks about that. I go to Cleveland. They let 7 marquee players go. I'm stuck with the tab. He moves to Baltimore. Now, if Andre Rison can move a whole damn organization, that's power. I don't have that much power.
You got the blame probably because Art Modell said on more than one occasion that he had to go to the bank and take out a loan in order to sign Andre Rison.
Now, in that organization, I assume 300, 400, 500, 600 different players have come through that door, that revolving door. And I'd be damned if you can blame that on one person for a whole team moving that tradition away from that city. It wasn't an ideal place for me to stay because the main people really didn't like me as a person, so it wasn't an ideal place.
This was a totally missed communication on the route. Rison went deep and just was jogging. Totally blew the communication on what that route was supposed to be.
Do you run undisciplined pass routes?
I just run the routes they tell me to run.
And did you in Jacksonville? There's nothing worse for a receiver than getting into an argument with his quarterback, let alone having it televised.
I didn't even argue with that guy.
What happened?
That guy argued with me and pointed his finger and did all those things. I didn't open my mouth not one time. And I haven't spoken to him since because the next day I departed, because the next day I was released.
Have you talked to Tom Coughlin since then?
For what? For what? I mean, I know he's seen me at the Super Bowl.
He's throwing it downfield. He's got him wide open. It is going to be a touchdown to Andre Rison. Rison takes it across the goal line.
Where do you keep your Super Bowl ring?
I threw it in the river.
You didn't?
Yeah.
What river?
Flint River.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Are the Packers a bad taste in your mouth?
Yeah.
Because that also seemed to be a pretty good tailor-made situation for you that for whatever reason didn't continue on to the following year.
No. I was used like a prostitute. They used me for what they had to use me for. I was right back out there.
Until other people got healthy.
I was right back out there.
Andre Rison says, you want to know how good I've been? Take a look at my recent history. And over the last 19 games in which he has played, for whatever team, those teams are 16-3.
It's still a team sport, and anytime a player of this caliber moves from team to team, a red flag goes up with me. Marty Schottenheimer says he's been an ideal citizen. This guy's everything you want. They always are when they first arrive at a football team, but when the going gets tough, and it's about to get tough now for Kansas City, because without Elvis Grbac, they're going to have to play Jacksonville on the road, Denver, Seattle on the road, and then San Francisco. Pretty tough deal. We'll find out how valuable he is now.
All right, Sam, we'll take a timeout. We'll be right back.
Still to come, he's the heir apparent to Buffalo's Thurman Thomas. We'll meet the Bills' Antoine Smith next. This is the NFL on NBC. Once again, here's Greg Gumbel.
Welcome back, everyone. One of the most debated on-field issues in the National Football League is pass interference. There were a couple of non-calls last week that caught our interest. In Chicago, the Bears' Curtis Conway was clearly interfered with in the end zone by Washington's Chris Dishman. Not only was nothing called, but Conway flipped his lid and wound up getting ejected from the football game. Sam, over the years, the rules haven't really changed as far as pass interference, have they?
The rules haven't changed, but the emphasis on some of the rules and also the interpretation of the rules tend to change. And in this case, this was just a blown call. Don Carey, who's a third-year official, field judge in the league, is a good official. He just blew this call. I think they all admit to that part of it. But during the course of the season, there will be different parts of the game that will be emphasized by Jerry Seaman to the officials, that we got to watch this, keep those offensive linemen up on the ball, watch the holding, the interference calls, and so forth. And that's always frustrating for coaches. What's being emphasized this week?
You know, I called Jerry Seaman this week, and I said, what is pass interference? And Ahmad, here was his answer. He said, if the defensive back materially impacts the opponent and impedes his opportunity to make the catch and significantly hinders the opportunity to make the catch, then that's pass interference. And I said, well, what if he just trips him?
That's what Don Carey told me.
Yeah. But now, speaking of tripping, in San Francisco, a critical play at the end of the game in which the flag was initially thrown, when the Cowboys' Michael Irvin and the Niners' Rod Woodson got tangled up. Now, after a discussion, it was ruled incidental contact, which I guess, Chris, is tripping.
Yeah, that would fall under that category. But I asked Jerry, and he said that was not pass interference for the simple reason that Rod Woodson, while he was running up on Michael Irvin's heels, was looking back. And so, Sam, now I guess the deal is as long as you can coach them to look back and run up on their heels and trip them, it's all okay.
Well, I have never coached them to do this.
But you should have.
I never.
Well, it works here.
Yeah, and I never will again. I should. Actually, coaches do coach that a little bit, and it's a technique, really, as you're running. If you're beat, and that was wide open in this league. If you're beat like that, you just time it so that your toe catches his heel and you come back, peek just a little bit, incidental contact.
Hey, I want to know this. As a couple of ex-wide receivers here, I just want to make sure that you guys are coming from the right point of view. Anything that isn't caught, then it must have been pass interference?
No. Not caught. There's no such thing as incidental contact, right?
That's exactly right. But I do think that there has to be a new rule in the league. You have running into the punter, you have the 5-yard, 15-yard face mask penalty. There's no reason why in this league now that you can't have an incidental contact pass interference call, 10 yards, automatic first down, so you don't have to have that 50-yard penalty.
They should probably throw like a pink flag or something.
Right.
Anyway, stay with us. Our NFL and NBC coverage continues.
This is the NFL on NBC.
Our late games today is Seattle at San Diego. Now, the Seahawks have been playing well of late, although they lost a tough game in Denver last week, 30-27. We are joined from San Diego by Jim Mora. Coach, good day to you.
How you doing, Greg?
I'm fine. Let's start with the Seahawks. How are they responding to what has to have felt like a bitter loss to the Broncos?
Well, they took the loss very, very hard, but Warren Moon told us that he thinks that's a good sign for this football team. In the last 7 games, they're 5-2, having lost both games by just 3 points at Kansas City and at Denver. And they're very much in the playoff picture. Warren Moon told us the team thinks they can win their last 7 games. But if they win 5, that'll put them at 10-6, and that should get them in the playoffs.
Jim, there's no Sam Humphries for San Diego today. He sustained a concussion last week against the Bengals, his second in 18 days. What do you see as his future?
Well, I talked to Stan Humphries on Friday for quite a while, and the doctors told him that he he cannot do anything until it's a month after he quits having headaches. And as of Friday, he was still having headaches. The concussion he sustained last week was the most serious concussion that he's had. And he told me that for the first time he had temporary nausea, and as he described it, tingling in his right leg and a loss of strength in his right leg. Stan's got a lot of time to think this over and make a decision, but I have a very strong opinion that Stan Humphries is going to retire and not play any more football.
All right, Jim, have yourself a good day. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Let's go to Ahmad.
All right, thanks, Greg. Let's get back to our other late game today, New England at Buffalo. The Bills' Thurman Thomas is now sharing time with the best rookie running back in the AFC, Antoine Smith. The story of the 25-year-old rookie is a remarkable one. He shared it with Jim Gray.
Millbrook is not a big town. It's a little small town. Football was the biggest thing there at our high school, but I was always into basketball.
Antoine Smith was raised here, in this house, by his paternal grandparents, Clara and John Smith. He played just one season of high school football, and that was on a dare from his friends at Stanhope Elmore. Poor grades forced Antoine to turn down 2 scholarship offers, and at age 18, he was set to join the Air Force.
I didn't carry that out neither because my grandmother, she was very ill at the time, and she needed help financially, so I went to work to help her out.
Clara Smith had suffered a stroke and was on kidney dialysis. John Smith was disabled after an accident at work. So for 3 years, Antoine Smith supported his family, working the second shift in a textile factory, dyeing fabric for $5.50 an hour.
You're 19 years old, helping your family. What ran through your mind at that time? Is it something that you think, hey, I may be stuck here a lifetime doing? What were your thoughts back then?
My only thoughts right then was, doing what I can for my grandparents. I didn't look at it as I would be working in the textile mill all my life. I knew that was something that I had to do. So I just, it was plenty nights that I didn't even want to go to work, but I knew I had to go to work because they needed the money, so I did.
During that time, however, you made a commitment to your grandmother. What was that?
She always wanted me to go to school. She felt the reason why I didn't go to school is because I felt obligated to help her. And before she passed away, she was like, boy, go to school and get your education. And I knew that meant so much to her. I looked at her, I said, all right, Mom, I'm gonna go to school. But right now, I'm helping you out. And that's something that just basically stuck with me. When my grandmother, when she passed away in '93, I had already went down to the school in Mississippi and had to try out.
Smith enrolled at East Mississippi Junior College, where he got his first exposure to the NFL. His coach, former Baltimore Colt Tom Good, made the snap from center on Jim O'Brien's game-winning field goal in Super Bowl V.
As the time went by, Coach Good, we became good friends, and he told me about he snapped the winning field goal in Super Bowl V. And we would go down to his house, and he'd put on the tape for me, he'd show it. He was like, look at that, ain't that a perfect snap, boy? Yeah, Coach, nobody did it better.
After one season in Scuba, Smith transferred to the University of Houston, where he quickly caught the eye of NFL scouts.
What an amazing play by the rookie from Houston, Antoine Smith.
You're 25 years old. You're too old to be a rookie. Having gone through that whole experience, has that made you a better player?
I think it have. I think that I'm on another level from the other rookies because of the things that I had to go through. It made me grow up a lot faster, accepting responsibility at such a young age. And I just think that it only helps me now to go out there and just, study that much harder, know the things that I had to do and don't take nothing for granted.
What a wonderful story. Now, Jim asked him about his life experiences making him a better football player. Forget about that. It made him a better person, Chris.
And Ma, we hear all the time about professional athletes that after they make these millions of dollars, they give some of it back to their family. But here's a guy that not only put his career on hold, he put his life on hold in order to help out the people that helped him along the way. I love that story.
Now, let's talk about a star player, Thurman Thomas, who is the #1 running back. All of a sudden, they draft a player at your position. That's got to be a tough position to be in, Sam.
And an entirely different story of a team player being unselfish. Thurman Thomas actually went to Marv Levy and said, look, play this guy. He's playing better. And has helped him on the field. Been like a coach on the field because Elijah Pitts, the running back coach of the Bills, is battling cancer right now, not always around. This is a tremendous story of 2 unselfish players.
And Marv Levy never gets enough credit for what he's done with this football team over the years, because here's a head coach that gets these superstar players to check their ego at the door, and a big reason why they've been winning.
I love these kinds of stories. It's just wonderful, isn't it?
Warm and fuzzy.
That's right. We'll be right back.
coming up. With his team struggling, Mike Ditka talks to his old friend Joe Gibbs. And the Jets are soaring, but not Pepper Johnson. We'll bring you his story when the NFL on NBC continues.
Staples, the office superstore, congratulates Dom Capers of the Carolina Panthers. He's been chosen the Staples Coach of the Week. Capers' team won its third straight last Sunday, a convincing 24-point win over the Oakland Raiders. Carolina improved its record to 5-4. The winning school is Ferndale Middle School in High Point, North Carolina. It will receive $5,000 in school supplies from Staples, the office superstore. Let's talk about some of the other games and issues in the league, beginning with the topic we just discussed with Jim Mora. Stan Humphries, he sustained his second concussion in 18 days last Sunday against the Bengals. Forget about what Stan Humphries thinks. When is someone going to stand up and tell this guy, you can't play football anymore?
Me, I'm telling him, don't play football anymore. And I tell you, this is getting to be a very frightening situation as far as I'm concerned in this league. Here's Stan Humphries. He's laid out on the field, second concussion in 18 days. He has memory loss. It's a grade 3 concussion, which is the worst of all concussions. They take him immediately to the hospital for a CAT scan, and the CAT scan comes back negative. What does that mean? To me, that means there is no definitive test to let these players know when there's a problem, and they keep leaving the decision whether or not they can play or not to the players. That's wrong. They're going to end up with somebody seriously hurt in this league.
The league is attacking this. Rather than talking to these quarterbacks, they're saying to the people that are making the hits on the quarterbacks. Bernard Wilson last week's Cincinnati Bengals tackle on Stan Humphries is what caused his latest concussion. It wasn't that bad of a hit, but Gene Washington fined him $7,500 because there was a concussion. They're actually attacking really the wrong source, I think, right here, because what you're doing is you're causing players to kind of let up out there on the field for fear they're going to get fined, not worried about the hits themselves.
All right, guys. Now, Pittsburgh is at home tonight against Baltimore, and there are a lot of people that don't like what the Steelers are doing on third and short, especially Monday night.
Well, Bill Cowher is a tremendous coach.
Uh-oh. There's a 30-second warning for Bill Cowher. Dr. Doom is on his way.
He's a tremendous coach, but it makes no sense to me whatsoever. I think if the Kansas City Chiefs had one wish that they could ask from Santa Claus, it would be, please take number 36 Jerome Bettis out of the game on 3rd down and 2. And the Steelers did it time after time last week. It was absolutely unbelievable. I thought the fact that they put Fred McAfee in here, I thought this decision really cost them the game because they kept putting themselves in third and short situations and then taking the bus out. It made no sense whatsoever.
And that Kansas City lost 13-10 now on 3rd down and less than 6, those 3rd and 2 and 3, they were 1 for 8, and they've got Bettis from the sideline right there. Sometimes, though, your coaching staff has a package for 3rd down, and they put certain personnel in the game to make sure they get in the game or maybe to rest another player, and at the end of it, you realize, hey, that isn't working.
All right, the Dallas Cowboys play the Arizona Cardinals today. Dallas is 4-5. There are some questions being asked around. I don't care what Jerry Jones says publicly. He's not paying this kind of money for a 4-5 team.
He sure isn't, and there's some real questions now about that offensive makeup and how hard they're working. Darren Woodson this past week, I thought, with a very telling sign, basically questioned how hard this offense was working in practice. Steve Mariucci, after the San Francisco game, said, hey, we just had more juice at the end of the game than did the Dallas Cowboys. I don't think they're working hard enough at it on the offensive side, and it's costing them football games.
Real quick, do you think Barry Switzer's safe for the rest of the year?
Yes.
Sam?
I do, too.
All right, the NFL and NBC continues in just a moment.
Coming up, things aren't going as well as he'd hoped for in New Orleans. Mike Ditka shares his thoughts with Joe Gibbs next. The NFL on NBC is brought to you by Northwestern Mutual Life. Have you heard from the Quiet Company? By PlayStation, a bit of advice for gamers everywhere. Never underestimate the power of PlayStation. And by Pringles, so fresh, once you pop, you can't stop.
Mike Ditka's New Orleans Saints, who are 2-7, face the Oakland Raiders, who are 3-6. It's been a frustrating year for our former colleague, so we dispatched Joe Gibbs to the Crescent City for a little coach-to-coach talk.
We're going inside him. We're going outside him. Inside him, outside him.
Regardless of what game it is or anything else, you play like champions every minute out there. Go get them.
I don't understand the game as well as I did when I left it, Joe. It's changed, and it's hard. You always told me you had a core of 18 to 20 guys, and you could put your hand on it and get the pulse of the team. It's hard to get the pulse of a football team here right now, and maybe a lot of places, but here especially.
What we got to do is want it as much as we know we want it. We want it that much. Let's go.
I'll tell you one thing. I've gone through every speech I've ever given, and every quote I've ever known, and everything I've ever believed. And I believe they hear it, and I believe they believe it. But I don't believe it makes that much impact anymore.
Yeah, I know how you play. I mean, and does that make it harder for you to see a guy, you know, he just doesn't have that, what you want in him?
And that's what I got to try to get across to them every day. This is the greatest opportunity in the world. If we win in this city, we own this city. This is the craziest city in the world. I mean, they love us and they hate us at the same time, and I don't blame them right now, because we do stink up the place at times. He's not ready. He thinks he's going to kill you. You sink your ass and hit him, you'll shock him pretty good. That's all it is. You always tell a football team, to win the war, you got to win the individual battles, and that's all it is. It's me and you. And I think this is a mentality that's kind of lost in the game right now. You know, if a guy blows something, he says, they got a new saying, they say, me bad. Me bad. Well, I know you're bad. I mean, I can see it. You can't hide from it. But me bad, I'd never say that. I'd say, hey, I'll get him next time. I'd never say, hey, me bad. So I'll get him next time.
Mike, why are you in such a bad mood?
What do you care? Okay. If you were 2-7, you'd be in a bad mood too. What next?
You tell Greg Gumbel, hey, I'm not going to crack it. I'm not going to crack it.
Oh, get mad?
Yeah, get mad. Why would you say that, though?
Well, the greatest was, I mean, being mad is nothing. I mean, I got a little upset a couple times on the sideline, but in the locker room, sometimes it's incredible. I mean, who is that guy? I don't even know who he is. I mean, I woke up this morning in a good mood, and I'm leaving this stadium in a lousy mood. Next.
I'm not sure anybody understands but the coaches. And you say, man, I don't want to let
exactly.
Tom Benson down, and the fans, and then your coaching staff that you all had move here.
Players, their families.
And that is what you carry as a coach. I think that wears you out as much as anything, and that's what I didn't realize I was getting into.
Well, I'd be honest with you. I've never been this tired at night in my life. I really haven't. This is not a physical thing. I know it's not. It's a mental thing. I've never got as tired as I've got here in my life. And then the funny thing, you go home, you jump in bed, you sleep for maybe 3-4 hours, you get up and back in here at 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning, you say, yikes, this is crazy, you know, and because it's hard. It's, you know, when I started doing this in the beginning, I forget that I was 43 years old, 42 years old. I'm 58 now. That's a little difference.
First of all, Mike, see, it's my bad, not me bad, meaning my fault. Anyway, you get the impression that Mike Ditka's heart is in it, but clearly things have changed since he coached the Bears. We'll be back in just a minute.
Coming up, he's long been one of Bill Parcells' favorite players. We'll bring you the story of injured Jets linebacker Pepper Johnson next.
Glenn Foley of the New York Jets warming up in Miami, where he'll make the 4th start of his career today against the Dolphins. His opposite number today will be Dan Marino, who's making his 207th career start. He's thrown for 66 touchdowns against the Jets alone. That's the featured early game in our doubleheader. Most of you will see another key AFC East game at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, New England at Buffalo. You folks in New York will get the Patriots and the Bills right after the Jets and the Dolphins. Greg?
All right, Ahmad, thanks. 3 weeks ago, the New York Jets suffered a huge loss. During a victory over New England, linebacker Pepper Johnson ruptured a tendon in his quadriceps, an injury requiring season-ending surgery. It was also a personal loss. Bill Parcells had grown very close to Johnson after coaching him for 5 seasons with the Giants. Chris Collinsworth has that story.
I think it was after Coach Parcells really got the job, when it was official. Immediately I said, everybody stay off the phone, because Coach Parcells might be calling, and you know, I don't want any interruptions.
I could tell at Detroit, for the most part, his heart wasn't in playing. There was something wrong, and it creates the impression that you're through. But when we talked this winter on the phone, and he'll tell you these exact words, I said, Pepper, I've been watching the film with you playing at Detroit. Now, the guy that played against Minnesota and Chicago, I don't want him. But the guy that played against the Packers, if there's still something left of that guy, that's the guy I want.
Right then, any notions that I had on retiring just went out the window, because here's the guy that I hold responsible for any type of achievements and any type of accomplishments and goals and stuff that I had, calling me and asking me that he needs help. You know, I have to drop what I'm doing, stop my plans and stuff, and go out and help Mr. Parcells. I was honored just to play alongside of Harry Carson, Carl Banks, and Lawrence Taylor. Coach Parcells would tell a different story. He says that I knew everything back then.
Pepper was a guy that was very confident, and when he first came in, and quite frankly, he was hard to coach because he knew everything.
I didn't feel like I knew everything. I felt like I was a weak link, you know, playing alongside these guys where they were A-plus linebackers, and here I am just Pepper Johnson, you know, there's nobody.
You know how much time's on the clock? You almost cost us a chance, son.
When I first came in, it was like, Pepper do this, Pepper do that. And I figured that I was getting all the slack because, I mean, look who I was playing alongside, Lawrence and Harry. Now, it's 12 years in the league, and now he's still getting on me.
In certain situations, all the players are the same. You have to try to get your point across. Now, he's heard all Bill Parcells has to say.
One time, he felt like I was letting him down on that, you know, where he was pushing me and trying to set an example with me and dogging me in practice. And I kind of like just stood over on the side like, I can't win. You know, this is not my week. So he thought I was pouting. So he comes over there to me and, you know, gave me a little elbow to the ribs. How can my captain of the team stand over here and pout when I'm trying to get something done?
I just had to tell him that I was counting on him to show these guys, you know, what we wanted, and he had to be a voice.
Next thing you know, I'm bouncing like a jackrabbit, you know, through the rest of practice, and that was the main reason for bringing me in.
Pepper Johnson's 2 Super Bowl rings with the Giants, 2 Pro Bowls with the Giants when he was with Parcells, and of course, a very emotional part of this team.
Tell me about the moment after the New England game. Obviously, an emotional game for Bill Parcells, beating the team that he took to the Super Bowl. You're injured in the game. That's emotional. Then afterwards, he comes into the locker room and brings the entire team into the training room to have the team prayer, I guess, in there with you.
Yeah, it got a little touchy. It got a little touchy up in there.
You get these kids when they're babies, and that's what he was when I first got him. And you watch him grow into what he's become.
His first response was, get his big so-and-so up and bring him up in here. Guys start grabbing wires, trying to lift me up and take me into the locker room.
I just looked in there, and I'm getting ready to kneel down there for the team prayer, and the training room door swings open, and I see him in there. You know, and there he is by himself, and, you know, that's all. So the training room's so small, you know, we can hardly get everybody, but we just dragged everybody in there.
I would have liked it a little better if I'd have got up and went to those guys, showing that, you know, I'm still strong.
When someone that you have a very strong personal feeling for, and a love of sorts, you know, I have to say that's the word, you feel the hurt.
A couple of tears shed it, and Coach Parcells, you know, he was like, man, hey, don't you start that, because you're going to make everybody get up in here. We're supposed to be happy.
Then he started crying a little bit, you know, and I told him to quit doing that. And, hey, hey, I love the kid. That's it.
All year, people was asking me about the character of the team and which direction the team was going, and I really couldn't answer them. But right then, I think that drew the character out of everybody and which direction that this team, this New York Jets, 97 New York Jets, are going, and that's up from here.
Bill Parcells hates us for exposing his soft side, but theirs is a pretty special relationship.
Yeah, it really is. And, you know, Bill Parcells has been criticized in the past for getting these former Giant players, but they really serve a purpose for him, because he goes out and he yells at Pepper Johnson and humiliates him in front of the team, and all of a sudden, guys like a Keyshawn Johnson or Adrian Morrell looks at him and says, well, you can do that to Pepper. I guess it's all right for him to do it to me, too.
Yeah, reminiscent of the relationship between you and Sam. Oh, yeah. My bad. We're back with the Honda Pick of the Week right after this.
The Pick of the Week is brought to you by American Honda, maker of fine quality automobiles, motorcycles, and power equipment. Ahmad Rashad and Joe Gibbs were the only winners last week, so the standings have tightened up. With this week's picks, here's Greg Gumbel.
While While we hold Ahmad down on the far end, we'll tell you this week's picks. Joe Gibbs, Chris, and Sam all like the Seahawks over the Chargers. Craig Wellaghan gets his first NFL starting quarterback for San Diego. Will takes the Patriots over the Bills. Ahmad likes Tampa Bay over Atlanta. I will go with the Redskins over the Lions. We remind you, pick along with us online, www.nbcsports.com. Look for the NFL and NBC interactive icon. Meanwhile, we will see you at halftime. The NFL and NBC continues after these words from your local station.
Unseasonably cool day in Northeast Florida as Jacksonville Jaguar fans have waited a long time to welcome their team home. The first time in a month, Jacksonville is back in town as Kansas City visits the Jaguars. Kansas City at 7-2, Jacksonville at 6-3. This is a marquee matchup. Hi, everybody. Dan Hicks along with Jim Kelly and James Lofton, and injuries have played a part in both of these teams. Let's start with Kansas City, Jim, as Elvis Gerbach is out with a broken collarbone. So Rich Gannon starts a stretch of the schedule, which is the most difficult for Kansas City this year.
Well, Rich Gannon makes his 43rd career start in his 10th year. And talking to Rich Gannon, he's pumped up. He's excited because he knows he's in the West Coast offense. It's going to put added pressure on the secondary of the Jacksonville Jaguars to cover guys like Blake Dawson and Andre Rison. And talking to Rich, he's pumped up. West Coast offense, he's excited.
Meanwhile, James, big changes up front for Mark Brunell. Tony Baselli out with a high ankle sprain, and they're shuffling those big guys all over the place.
Yeah, and not only does Mark Brunell lose a guy who he calls his best friend, and he can deal with that 6 out of the 7 days a week, but he loses his best offensive lineman. And you would think, looking at the starting lineup at the beginning of the season, Leon Searcy, the rest of the guys are set. You lose Baselli, plug in one guy, that's not the case. They have made wholesale changes. Searcy's the only guy in the same position. Tilsky moves from right guard to left guard, and Ben Coleman moves to what he calls center stage, the star spot. He mentioned $17 million playing left tackle.
Well, Jacksonville enjoys one of the best home field advantages in the league. They look for their 11th straight win here at home. We're back with a kickoff. The Chiefs and the Jaguars right after this. Beautiful sunny day in Jacksonville as the Chiefs and Jaguars get ready to kick it off. Tom Coughlin's team fresh off a 3-game road trip and taking on Marty Schottenheimer and the Chiefs. Won a critical game Monday night as Jacksonville has won the toss, and they will receive Pete Stoyanovich to kick off and back deep for Jacksonville. Willie Jackson, and back just up in front of him is the tight end, Pete Mitchell, but Willie Jackson, the lone man, back deep, and he gets the crowd into it. As we mentioned, the first time in a month that Jacksonville has played at home. Marquee AFC matchup. And here we go from Jacksonville, a short, poor kick by Stoyanovich. Jackson comes up to the 11 to field it. Dodges a tackle and gets it across the 30. And across the 45-yard line. So Jacksonville will begin with excellent field position thanks to a 34-yard kickoff return by Jackson. Mark Brunell. And the offensive line up front for him, as James mentioned at the top, totally different with Tony Baselli out with a sprained ankle at least 3 to 4 weeks. Their best offensive lineman, Leon Searcy, the only man on that offensive line that stays at his position at right tackle. James Stewart gets the start. We'll see plenty of Natron Means, one of the best wide receiving duos in the NFL, Jimmy Smith and Keenan McCardell.
You know, one of the things, Dan, that the Jacksonville Jaguars want to do to the Kansas City Chiefs, they want to use multiple offensive sets. They're going to open this ball game with 2 tight ends, and they will shuffle guys in and out just to keep them off track.
So a 1st and 10, call it from the 48 for Jacksonville. Excellent field position. James Stewart gets the call, and he's very quickly into Kansas City territory, brought down by Reggie Tongue as we set the Chiefs defense for you. Only the 49ers have given up fewer points than Kansas City in the 3-4 alignment. Booker, Phillips, and Browning are up front. Derek Thomas still playing despite a torn tricep. He's about 80%, but he's the 8-time Pro Bowler. And a very quick Kansas City defense. Gain of 6 for Stewart. Second down and 4 for Jacksonville. And they give to Stewart. And Stewart driving for first down yardage is to the Kansas City 41.
A lot of the focus today is going to be on Derek Thomas and Ben Coleman. I mean, so much was said about Tony Baselli coming into this season, but Ben Coleman felt very comfortable over the left tackle. And a lot of times, first 2 plays, cutbacks to the left side over Ben Coleman. He's excited about today because he realizes once this game gets going, the momentum, playing against a guy like Derek Thomas, he knows he has to make a name for himself today.
Thomas, who missed 4 games with a torn tricep. Marty Schottenheimer told us that he is still just about 80%. And Brunell to throw for the first time today with plenty of time. Throws it to the left side, and it's complete to Derek Brown. And Brown has another first down for Jacksonville, brought down by Anthony Davis. That is just the 7th reception for Brown. It's good for 17 yards.
And just another piece of the puzzle for Tom Coughlin's offense. You know, Chris Palmer came in here. He's the new offensive coordinator, and so many weapons to work with. That time, Brunell has plenty of time in the pocket. And if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, you're thinking about the wide receivers. Pete Mitchell, he's caught a ton of passes. James Stewart out the backfield. Derek Brown, you know, I remember the #1 pick, but you don't expect him to be catching passes.
Jacksonville marching right down the field on their opening series, trying to take advantage of the excellent field position. Brunell to the air again. This one's complete to Ty Halleck. And Halleck has a first down, gain of 18.
One thing that when you take chances as a defensive unit, blitzing like the Kansas City Chiefs have shown so far, you're going to leave somebody wide open. All the receivers on the outside are going to be 1-on-1. And James, you know, when a defense blitzes, the receivers love that. I mean, they thrive on 1-on-1 coverage, and sometimes a missed coverage, somebody's wide open.
Yeah, and invariably they'll lose a tight end, a guy who they expect to have to stay in and block to protect the blitz. That guy leaks out in the flat. There's Gunther Cunningham starting to pull his hair out already.
You might remember in the Monday night game against Pittsburgh, Kansas City's defense was shredded early in the first half. James Stewart gets the call on first and goal, and he's just inside. Jacksonville used to quick starts. They lead the league with 79 first quarter points, and they're well ahead of second place New York. As you take a look at Tom Coughlin's team, and the wind and the rain last week in Memphis, beating Tennessee 30-24, so they go 1-2 on the road trip, and they have 4 of their next 5 at home. The tight ends, 3 of the last 4 touchdown passes of the Jaguar offense. Now, second and goal, just inside the 5. And Brunell with a play-action fake, touchdown Jacksonville to Pete Mitchell. Another tight end with a touchdown.
Anytime you have play action inside the 10-yard line, the linebackers automatically have to go with the running backs. And when you do that, you totally miss the tight ends coming across the middle. Excellent call.
That is the 3rd straight game now that Pete Mitchell has caught a touchdown pass. Jacksonville marches right down the field after beginning their opening series at the 48. Mike Hollis's extra point, and that quickly. 11:30 left in the first quarter, and Jacksonville continues to pile up the first quarter points in 97.
The NFL on NBC is brought to you by the new Dodge. It's about change. By the United States Army Reserve. Be all you can be. By Visa, the official card of the NFL. It's everywhere you want to be. And by Compaq, the most popular computer in the world.
Well, it just took 3.5 minutes for Jacksonville to get on the board. 7-0. Pete Mitchell with the touchdown pass from Brunell caps off the 6-play, 52-yard drive, which was set up nicely on the kickoff return by Willie Jackson. So now Mike Hollis ready to kick off for Jacksonville, and Kansas City will get a shot as the ever-dangerous Tamarick Vanover waits for Kansas City deep. Vanover tries to field it on one hop at the goal line and gets no further than the 10. Randy Jordan on
the special teams tackle for Jacksonville. Let's take another look at the TD, James.
I mean, it should come as no surprise. We mentioned that the tight ends have caught 3 of the last 4 touchdown passes. I think the problem for Kansas City is Mark Brunell is now healthy. Once he puts pressure on the corners, guys have to come up. They have to start and play the run because Mark Brunell, a guy who was injured at the end of the preseason, is now healthy. He has his wheels under him. When we were at practice on Friday, he has the sprint speed that he lost from that knee injury. He may not be 100% healthy, but at 90%, he can still put pressure running the ball on the defense.
Meanwhile, with Elvis Gerbach out, this is Rich Gannon getting his first start for Kansas City this year, and he goes to the air right away, and to a man having an excellent season, Andre Rison, gain of 9 for the Spider-Man. Gannon, the quarterback up front, has an excellent offensive line. The strength in the middle was Zott, Grunhard, and Shields, who have started together for 4 years. You just saw Rison make his 48th catch of the season. He, along with Lake Dawson, the wideouts, and Derek Walker, the tight end, gets the start. But we will see plenty of Tony Gonzalez, the rookie out of Cal, because Kansas City is also playing without Ted Popson, their starting tight end. Greg Hill gets the call and picks up the first down easily across the 25-yard line. Jacksonville defense. They have lost another defensive tackle. Kelvin Pritchett is out. Ronaldo Wynn, the rookie out of Notre Dame, gets his second start up front for Jacksonville. The linebackers, Kopp, Schwartz, and Robinson. Thomas and Figures, the corner. Travis Davis and Chris Hudson are the safeties. Tony Brackens, in his second year out of Texas, has 6 sacks to lead Jacksonville this year. Give to Kimball Anders, and Anders up close to the 29.
You just talked about Brackens there, and when I talked to Tony Baselli earlier in the season, he said this guy is going to become the best defensive end in football. One guy tries to cut him, that doesn't happen. Zotz gets a hand on him, and Brackens defeats 2 guys and still folds back in to make the tackle on Anders.
Well, that's exactly what he told us a few weeks back when we talked to him, that he's the guy that's going to make Tony Brackens the player it is. Tony Baselli says time and time again, he never stops. He keeps going.
He had 7 sacks last year. Gannon, this time off the mark, intended for Tony Gonzalez, number 88, a 21-year-old rookie out of Cal, who they like a lot. And with Popson out with a mild head trauma and a sore neck and a nasty hit last week, we'll see a lot of Gonzalez.
And talking to Rich Gannon, I don't know if you guys got the same opinion. So confident, so excited about playing in today's game. I mean, you'd think that he's been a starter all along, and the confidence that he shows, mainly because of the West Coast offense.
3 wide receiver set on 3rd and 8 for Gannon. Movement up front. A flag comes in. Gannon may have a free one here. It's incomplete over the head of Gonzalez.
I think Gannon knew he had a free one right there because he was covered pretty well down the middle. But hey, you got to take a chance. It's completed. You got a big gain.
Yeah.
And it'll be offsides as indicated by Jerry Markwright, the referee today.
Offside, number 90, defense, 5-yard penalty, 3rd down.
Yeah, we talked about Brackens, a guy who always has his motor running. There's no movement by the Chiefs there. But you up here, we can't hear the voice inflection that a veteran quarterback like Rich Gannon will obviously put on guys. And, you know, they haven't played against them. They don't have the book on them. But now, you know, come back to the line, the defensive coach say, hey, you guys have got to watch the football. It's that simple.
So on 3rd down and 3, the ageless 37-year-old Marcus Allen in the backfield set behind Gannon. And Gannon goes to Marcus Allen in the flats and off the fingertips of Marcus. 4th down, Chiefs will be forced to punt.
What you try to do there, you just try to get the football to Marcus Allen, put it in his hands. He had a couple steps on the linebacker. It's just a matter of putting it right there where he can catch it. Because anytime one-on-one with number 32, most of the times he's going to win.
Yeah, but I'm surprised the Jacksonville Jaguars only bring 4 guys, and the Chiefs can't protect Rich Gannon better than that. He has to throw that ball while he's going backwards. Doesn't get enough on it to really stick it on Marcus Allen in his body.
The hot receiver.
Reggie Barlow awaits the Louis Aguiar punt. Barlow had a 52-yard punt return last week. Had a 72-yard touchdown return called back. Excellent punt by Aguiar, who's second best in net punt in the league. And Barlow is corralled down rather quickly at the 17-yard line by Kimball Anders. So Jacksonville strikes quickly early and leads 7-0.
This is the NFL on NBC.
Back in Jacksonville, Dan Hicks with Jim Kelly and James Lofton. The Jaguars enjoying an early 7-0 lead over Kansas City. Mark Brunell admitting that he's really not quite 100% after the preseason knee injury. Still wearing the bulky knee brace that he actually approached Tom Coughlin this week with thoughts of maybe taking it off, and Coughlin's response was, "Don't even think about it."
Not a chance. I mean, I even tried to talk to him about maybe going down to a smaller brace, because I remember I've never ever played without a knee brace, and they do come in smaller sizes, so I'm kind of surprised that he wears such a big one.
Yeah, but Coughlin said, this is a guy who we thought was going to have major reconstructive surgery. I'm not going to let him take the brace off just because he thinks he's healthy. Smart move.
Brunell a perfect 3 for 3 on that opening drive. They begin in much deeper territory, this time at the 18 as James Stewart gets the call. James Stewart, the back, getting most of the carries now in place of Natron Means. Natron Means played just for the first time in 3 weeks last week. He's been nursing another one of those high ankle sprains.
I love James Stewart. We got to talk to him. He's so humble, and he had that nickname, Little Man, coming out of Tennessee. And asked him about it. Got it from his dad. His dad, James II, 6'1", 235. So it fits him. And when he came here, he was actually the GOAT. When he got drafted, they thought he would be a Herschel Walker type to lead this team down.
There's Brunell showing some mobility, picking up the first down and smartly running out of bounds at the 36.
A new Mark Brunell right there. I remember the times where he juked the defensive secondary to try to make more yards downfield, but again, playing very smart football. He knew where the sideline was. He knew where the first down marker was.
It's interesting. You look at quarterbacks, and when that pocket opens up in the middle, everybody wants to take off. Mark Brunell, he probably could have slid there and saved himself the fact that he had to run 20 extra yards just to get out of bounds. But that makes those defensive backs just drool when they see a guy like that come in. But Mark Brunell, one of the more elusive guys in the league.
13 there for the scrambling Brunell. Another first down for Jacksonville. And Brunell going to the left side, incomplete. Pete Mitchell, who caught the touchdown pass a little overthrown. The first incompletion for Brunell today.
When you're going to try a play that takes a little while longer to develop, Mark Brunell, Pete Mitchell's not a speed receiver. We can all agree with that. When you wait for that guy to get open deep, you're going to end up on your butt more often than not. But Mark Brunell realized that. He knows that this play is going to take a long time to develop, but he has to go out and get in the face of those guys and say, keep them off of him.
Brunell took a good shot from John Browning and Derek Thomas. And this is Natron Means stacked up, led by Dale Carter and a host of Chiefs.
I've seen a couple of cases here early in the ball game where James Stewart and Natron Means, they both seem to have a little daylight, but instead they kind of took it to the Kansas City defender. And one of the themes coming out into this ball game is that Kansas City is a very tough team. In Jacksonville, we want to establish ourselves to be equally as tough. So I think they really want to see who's the most physical.
We mentioned the high ankle sprain by Means, and Tom Coughlin gave us the correct medical terminology for that. He called it an interosseous.
I thought that was a small dinosaur.
Close in size.
Interosseous, by the way, gentlemen, is the ligament between the tibia and the fibula. We'll be right back. Midway through the first quarter, Jacksonville on top 7-0, and you can follow the NFL online at MSNBCSports.com. Randy Cross takes a look at why the running game has been so dominant this season and gives his own view of the Jets quarterback situation. Plus, Gil Brandt discusses Barry Switzer and the Cowboys. Also, go online Tuesday at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, 5 Pacific, and you can chat with NFL and NBC host Greg Gumbel. It's all at MSNBCSports.com.
See, Marty just wrote that down because he didn't know about that. He didn't know about the chat with Greg Gumbel. He's making him know that. I'm going to talk to Greg online.
3rd down and 7. Jacksonville up 7-0, and Brunell working out of the shotgun again with a revamped offensive line. Standing in there, the pressure comes. Brunell avoids it. 2 tacklers, and then they converge on him, and he has to throw it away.
Boy, how he got out of that, I have no idea. And to be able to get away from that and move to the right and being able to throw it away is unbelievable. I mean, this particular play, it takes a little bit more time because there's a deep route, but I think all of a sudden they thought they had him in a pocket, but he was able to get out and makes a smart move by throwing the ball out of bounds.
That was Wayne Simmons, who was just acquired a month ago, that had the initial shot on Brunell. He's able to escape. And so Brian Barker, who leads the NFL in net punting average, booms a beauty to Vanover, who takes it at the 10 and is knocked out of bounds at the 17. 61-yard punt by Barker. Ricky Parker ran Vanover out of bounds. So here comes Rich Gannon. We mentioned feeling very comfortable with his 3rd career start for Kansas City, but remember, this is a guy that started 35 games for the Minnesota Vikings, also had 4 starts for the Washington Redskins, so he's very at ease in this element.
Yeah, and he said, I've been in this offense for 3 years. Paul Hackett's, West Coast. And you talk about Paul Hackett. That's one of the guys who was there when this thing got started with Bill Walsh, Sid Gilman, and back in the early 70s with Kenny Anderson. Gannon says it's all footwork.
The fake pitch to Donnell Bennett. Gannon rolls right and off of the chest pad of Andre Rison.
I didn't know that Spider-Man wore a chest pad. During the pregame, they had a mock-up Spider-Man who was chased by the Jaguars mascot. Andre Rison is used to people getting on him. He may end up feeding off of this adversity as the game goes on.
Well, you mentioned feeding off the adversity. Rison played for Jacksonville last year. He played in 10 games. It was somewhat of an acrimonious departure here.
And they were mad at him, too.
And I don't think he was too happy either.
Donnell Bennett gets the carry across the 20, but that will bring up 3rd down. And you might have seen our pregame piece on Andre Rison as you check out some of the other scores around the NFL today. I did not know that Andre Rison, I don't know if you guys believe him, he said he threw his Super Bowl ring in the Flint River.
I think he's getting that from Muhammad Ali, throwing his gold medal. And,
I don't know about
I think he's pulling our legs there a little bit.
All of a sudden it'll pop up 20 years from now.
Whoa, found it.
Just happened to float ashore.
Big 3rd down play here for Gannon and the Chiefs. Gannon fakes right, tries to set up the screen to Kimball Anders, and Anders gets the 1st down. Anders with his 42nd reception of the season. It leads all NFL quarterbacks. He had 7 catches last week. That one good for 7.
Well, talking to their linebackers, their defensive linemen, they know where Kimball Anders is going to be. They realize he has over 40 catches coming into this ball game. And when he's in the game, they know they're going to throw the pass to him. Right here, screen pass out, excellent blocking. He knows where he has to go to get the yards, and he's going to put his head down and try to run a small defensive back over like a Kevin Devine.
Anders, a 2-time Pro Bowler. He's been Kansas City's top receiver in each of the last 3 years. On 1st and 10, Gannon to the air again, and he's got Lake Dawson on the right side, and Dawson gets 4 or 5 yards brought down by Dave Thomas. Let's get a scoring update from Greg Gumbel in New York.
All right, Dan, in Miami, the Dolphins' opening drive was a beauty. 80 yards and 47 of them courtesy of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who takes it the final 4 for the touchdown. With the extra point, Miami jumps on top of the New York Jets. 7-0 first quarter, Dan.
Okay, thank you, Greg. 7-0 here in Jacksonville. Kansas City with a 2nd down and 5 from its own 34. And they give to Greg Hill, and Hill fights his way across the 40 for another Kansas City 1st down. Deion Figures on the tackle.
Yeah, and when this season started, Marty Schottenheimer said, Greg Hill's going to be our guy, but look at his average the last 6 ball games, only 2.2 yards per carry. He has great breakaway speed. I think by running back by committee with Greg Hill, Marcus Allen, Donnell Bennett, I think it has affected Greg Hill more than anybody else. He hasn't been able to find that rhythm. Marcus Allen, he knows what he's going to do. Kim Landers, he knows he's going to catch the ball and get a couple of carries. It's really hurt Greg Hill.
Play action by Gannon, avoids one defender and gets it out to the outside to Kimball Anders. And Greg Hill, here's a guy, Jim and James, that thought he was going to get about 20, 25 catches at the beginning of the year, and really he's lucky to get 9 or 10.
Yeah,
the way the season has progressed.
He hasn't gotten the carries that he expected. It's been amazing because he was very patient in waiting behind Marcus Allen to become the main starter, become the go-to guy in the running game, but it just hasn't materialized. But you have to remember, this is still a ball club that's 7-2.
Here's a formation, double tight end set for Kansas City when they like to have Donnell Bennett as the single back, and Bennett gets the ball. And Bennett dives ahead for what looks like a first down. Bennett's the guy they've come to rely on in the last couple of games. They like to give it to him late when they need to eat the clock and churn up yardage.
Well, everybody realizes in a running back situation what their role is. Marty Schottenheimer even told us that, hey, the running backs know that they're not going to get 1,000 yards. They're all going to take their time. They're all going to take their position, knowing exactly when they're going to come into the ball game and get their yards.
That doesn't make them any happier about it.
Doesn't make Greg Hill feel any better. Inside Jacksonville territory for the 8th play of the drive at the 48. And Bennett gets the carry again, this time no more than a yard.
Donnell Bennett carries.
Jeff Lageman, who is only 265 pounds, and he says the guys are just growing and growing and growing. Last week in the ball game, Tennessee Oilers have it 1st and goal on the 7-yard line. Lageman makes 4 consecutive plays in a row. And the thing I asked him, I said, well, what did you do the rest of the ball game? He chuckled about it. But a guy who just loves to play football, has had 4 surgeries already, has his 5th scheduled for when the year's over, doesn't know how much longer he can continue at this pace.
On 2nd down and 9, Greg Hill gets the call, and we'll remind you that this is a Jacksonville defense which did lose another defensive tackle this week. The injury to Kelvin Pritchett, who is filling in for the injured John Yurkovich. They've discovered that his knee injury was much more serious than they first thought, and he is out for the season. Yurkovich has a broken leg. He's out for the season. Kevin Hardy out with a knee injury. They miss Aaron Beasley, so
they know somebody's got to step up. I mean, nowadays the backups are almost as important as the starters.
On 3rd down and 7, here comes Lageman for the sack.
Lageman gets matched up with Glenn Parker. It becomes almost a non-factor. Lageman is actually out here. He's playing a stand-up position. Probably the last time he did that was in college. He goes straight by Glenn Parker. Too much speed. He sweeps the hands away. Parker can't even lay a glove on him.
Huge play by Lageman. He picks up his 2nd sack of the season, and that forces Kansas City to punt. Aguiar angling this one to the right. Another excellent punt for him, and he gets it to check back and skip back, and the Chiefs recover it at the 6-yard line. 47-yard precision punt by Aguiar. Back in Jacksonville, the Jaguars up 7-0. It's Billy Joe Tolliver talking with Andre Rison. Billy Joe, the redhead who signed Wednesday.
Now, that's not the Billy Joe who doesn't study his playbook, is it?
No. We won't get into that one.
It's a long story in Buffalo, right, Jeff?
But knowing Billy Joe Tolliver, he's probably talking to him about golf.
Right. But they brought in Billy Joe Tolliver. As you take a look at Tony Bracken's being attended to on the sideline. They bring in Billy Joe Tolliver without Elvis Gerbach, so Pat Barnes is now the backup behind Gannon, and Billy Joe's the third QB. As you take a look at Mark Brunell, and here's a guy that has been criticized a little bit lately, guys. The offense hasn't exactly been reeling off the big plays that they did last year, and Brunell's taken a little bit of heat.
Yeah, but I think that people aren't looking at the big picture, because last year they had a lot of come from behind type of games where they had to throw the football. He's throwing for 400 yards and they're losing. They've become more controlled. They run the ball better than what they did last year, and now they win more consistently.
And Brunell has cut down significantly on the interceptions. And to give up the middle to James Stewart. Twisting, spinning his way for 2 or 3 yards, brought down by Anthony Davis. Yes, Jacksonville has been outgained in the last 6 games by their opponents, but the bottom line is they are 6-3 and right in the middle of the AFC playoff picture.
Well, that's what counts. I mean, you have to be there, especially this time of the year. There's always about 3 or 4 teams are fighting for that playoff position, and Jacksonville is right in the middle of it.
Well, the clock has now been stopped with 19 seconds left in the first quarter. And now Mark Bright raising the roof
he's
here
saying
at
raise the
Alltel
roof.
Stadium.
Get the crowd fired up.
I didn't know Jerry was so hip. Well, with one blow of the whistle, Jerry cranks it up. And that could be the last play of the quarter. It will. Jacksonville will head all the way to the other side of the field. When we come back to begin the second quarter, they'll have a 2nd down and 8. Jacksonville up 7-0 into the first.
Braid is doing a paper on the Ebola virus, and he's going to watch the movie, and he's going to call it homework.
You bought it, James?
Yeah, hey, whatever he does,
really.
He's smarter than I am, and I hope he doesn't listen to the tape of this.
Kansas City's Marty Schottenheimer, who has guided his team to 6 straight playoff appearances until last year when they did not make it. And you would have to think that Jacksonville's run in the AFC stretch last year at the end of the year prevented the Kansas City Chiefs from making the playoffs for the 7th straight year.
And Marty realizes that this has become a business of, now what are you going to do for me next, not lately.
Jacksonville from its own 9, 2nd down and 8. Brunell trying to loft it towards Keenan McCardell. Perfectly timed and a great catch made by Keenan.
Mark Brunell saw the outside 1-on-1. I can remember throwing the ball to James Lofton many, many times. Anytime you see single coverage, man-to-man on the outside, just lay the ball out there. James, does that look familiar?
Yeah, and McCardell had told us that they were going to run that play where he and Smith line up close. He goes right off the tail of Smith. The only place where he could have dropped that ball in for a completion. Nice throw by Brunell.
Well, the injury report on Tony Brackens, he's headed to the locker room to get an x-ray. Big part of that Jacksonville defense. Nice little shuffle move by Brunell, but then the pocket closes on him, and he is crunched by a trio of Chiefs. Derek Thomas was there, Dan Williams was there, and Brunell paid the price.
Yeah, Brunell is looking downfield, and what happens, you should have a clock in your head, kind of like a quarterback clock, when you know you've been back there too long. And he takes chances because guys have passed him going one direction, and when guys pass you, they're going to stop, turn around. You're still holding that ball, they're going to come back and get you.
Well, he's so used to making the big play, that's what he probably was trying to think right there.
Made a big play here with 2nd down and 18. Brunell getting loose again, and Jimmy Smith is on the loose. Dale Carter trying to catch him, and he just does inside the 1. You might expect Jimmy Smith to take that to the end zone. He's the speed guy for Jacksonville, but Dale Carter can move as well, and he saved the touchdown after a 75-yard reception by Smith.
Well, movement is what starts this play. Mark Brunell's ability to move within the pocket. You get Reggie Tongue, who comes and bumps James Hasty off of his guy, and Dale Carter, it didn't look like he was going to catch him from up here, and he sticks that left arm out, and they're still attending to it. just catches the left arm right along the right shin near the interosseous. That could cause a high ankle sprain.
It almost looked like Jimmy Smith ran out of gas. And if you know, James, somebody's chasing you from behind, you try to make a little move, maybe go a little wider.
Look at that, the longest pass play in Jaguars history. 75 yards to Jimmy Smith. And Dale Carter shaken up on the sidelines.
You know, when this season started, people started talking about Jimmy Smith and Keenan McCardle. McCardle made the Pro Bowl last year. You know, these guys are going to catch 100 passes. Their numbers are actually down, but they make one of the best duos in the AFC. People want them to catch more passes, but McCardle acknowledges we may not catch as many passes, but if we win and we're playing in January, that's what's important.
Both of them have taken long paths to get where they are. McCardle, the Pro Bowler. Jimmy Smith was released by Dallas, cut by Philly. He was out of football in '94. And he said that some guys have paid their dues. He said, we've overpaid ours. First and goal inside the 1. James Stewart flying over for the touchdown. And another rushing touchdown for Stewart. That is his 8th of the season. He, of course, had 5 in one game earlier this season against the Eagles.
You know, when you look at James Stewart vaulting over taking a page out of the book of Marcus Allen, and we asked him about, you know, being on the same field as Marcus. He said, yeah, you know, when he's on the field, I think I'll get off the bench so that I can just take a look at Marcus Allen.
Brian Barker to hold it for Mike Hollis. And Jacksonville is up 14-0 with 13:03 left. It was a nice hurdle by Stewart, but remember, Jimmy Stewart's pass play was good for 75.
The NFL on NBC is brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? By IBM, solutions for a small planet. By Frost Brewed Coors Light, who reminds you the 3 most important words are, hey, beer man. And by UPS, the official package delivery company of the NFL.
We talked about the shuffling of the offensive line. You get a down block by DeMarco, a down block by Cheever, and the guy who does a nice shuffle coming around is Rich Tilsky. There's not very many guys who weigh 310 pounds are that light on their toes. It's just a big gaping hole for Stewart. I think he could have gone under that. I think he just likes to go airborne.
And you're right, he looked exactly like Marcus Allen going over the top. Talked about him standing there and at times watching him. Boy, almost identical.
There again, the scoring drive set up at a 75-yard pass play to Jimmy Smith, the longest pass play in Jaguar history. Tamarick Vanover awaiting Mike Hollis's kick. This game looks a lot like the Monday night game that Kansas City pulled out against Pittsburgh. The Chiefs fell behind 10-0 in the first quarter, but then they held the Steelers scoreless for the remaining 3 to pick up the 13-10 win. We'll see what happens today. Vanover comes up to the 11, streaks right up the middle. And what a tackle made by Hollis, who saved the touchdown. Vanover, who earlier this year returned a kickoff 94 yards for a touchdown against the Bills, is disappointed that he couldn't get by the kicker.
What people don't realize about Tamarick Vanover until you go to practice, until you see him at field level, is that this guy is 5'11". He weighs close to 220 pounds. Marty Schottenheimer says that he gets faster and faster as he goes. I'm surprised that he doesn't break the kicker's arm, because this guy has thighs like tree trunks.
Nice play by Hollis. And Gannon goes to work. Wide open is Tony Gonzalez, the rookie out of Cal. Tony Gonzalez, a tremendous athlete, just 21 years old, and again getting more playing time with the injury to Popson. Travis Davis is the injured player for Jacksonville.
When you look at Tony Gonzalez, I mean, the key to this one is play action fake by Gannon going back in the pocket and having time to throw. Being able to pull those linebackers up, and Gonzalez breaks out. Watch him look the football right into his hands. Catch it, he turns up. This is something Rich Gannon likes about his receivers. They give him a good target to throw at.
Yeah, and Marty Schottenheimer is so excited about the talent that Gonzalez has. He says, when I was an assistant with the Cleveland Browns, we had Ozzie Newsome. This guy is far better athletically than Ozzie was, but you also have to turn the clock back 20 years. Ozzie Newsome was about the best thing for tight ends when he was playing.
That surprised me hearing him say that about Ozzie Newsome, and he said, hey, Ozzie was the best at that time.
Well, still concern on the field for Travis Davis, the third-year player out of Notre Dame, as they roll him on his back now. We'll wait for a report on Travis Davis. We'll be right back. The injured player, not Travis Davis, it's Dave Thomas, the injured player, coming off the field. Kansas City continuing the drive. Greg Hill gets the carry.
Yeah, and Dave Thomas was down for a long time. He's back in the ball game now. When players go down, I think everybody collectively, you kind of hold your breath. But what players are really taught now is when you get hurt, you're taught not to move. So we see a guy, lying motionless. Well, ever since Pop Warner football through high school, you're taught when you get hurt, to stay down. It used to be way back in the older days when Jim and I, when you got hurt, you wanted to get up.
Inside the 30. Anders short of the first down. It'll bring up third down.
Yeah, because one of the things, just to elaborate on a little bit more, is at times they tell you to stay down so your backup can get a little, warmed up on the sidelines, and especially if you're in a skilled position. Receivers need to stretch a little bit more. Quarterback needs to warm up on the sidelines. So you try to stay down, and plus defensive coordinator has to figure out, okay, what are we going to do now?
Gannon with time to the near side, incomplete, and that's a nice play made by Dave Thomas. A flag has been thrown at the line of scrimmage on Rison, the intended receiver. And a holding call against the Chiefs.
So what do you do here, Dan? Do you take them back further out of field goal range and give them another shot at third down? Coach Dan?
Number 69, offense. Penalty is declined. Fourth down.
Penalty is declined, and that will force the Chiefs to punt.
No, that's Stoyanovich trotting out
coming on. Yeah, he is coming on. Stoyanovich has the leg to get it done. He's hit a season-long 52-yarder. So this will be a 45-yard attempt for sure. Yeah, this is right in Stoyanovich's range. He can make it. His only miss this season has been from 48 yards. 16 of 17 on the year for Stoyanovich. Does that have enough? Just barely over the crossbar. Stoyanovich breathes a sigh of relief. And Kansas City finally gets on the board. Just by that much. Chiefs get on the board with 11 minutes remaining in the first half, and a familiar face in these parts, the former Gator Willie Jackson, waiting back deep.
Yeah, and he had a good kickoff return earlier. Guy who hasn't been in the mix offensively, but Coughlin says he's still a good football player, but don't send me messages through the media.
A low knuckler by Stoyanovich, and it's picked up by Pete Mitchell. So Willie Jackson never had a chance to get his hands on it. And Big Pete Mitchell brought down by Troy Dumas.
I think every receiver wants to get the football. I mean, Mark Brunell knows that he has a lot of quality receivers out there. It's just a matter of trying to find a play to get to each individual receiver. I know, James, when you play with some good quarterbacks, but you never argued that much when you didn't get the football, did you?
No, but I'd slip donuts in their locker trying to get them to throw me the ball.
Donuts. I don't ever remember a donut being in my locker.
I put them in Frank's locker.
Oh, okay.
He ate all of them before they got to you.
We may want to mention, for those of you not familiar, James Lofton did play for the Buffalo Bills 4 years. Jim Kelly as a receiver. And right to the air goes Brunell. That's complete for a first down. Jimmy Smith, good for 22.
Yeah, but a great move by the Jacksonville Jaguars. A guy comes in off the bench. He has to play in place of Dale Carter, Mark McMillan, and he likes to give a lot of ground. Brunell told us that. He said, now Carter and Hasty, they'll get up in your face. McMillan, who's only 5'7", about 148 pounds, he doesn't like to get up there and bump and run these guys. And Jimmy Smith goes 210. He can just toss McMillan to the ground. He tries to bump and run him.
The injury report on Dale Carter, a right shoulder strain. So for the moment, the 5'7" McMillan is in there covering the receivers. Willie Jackson on a play that Jacksonville likes to run. And Willie Jackson gets some decent yardage out of it. Finally wrestled down by Reggie Tongue.
And a lot of these teams do not take this as a reverse. A lot of teams use this as a counter, bringing a guy around. But one thing they have to do, they have to show a few different wrinkles. Make sure they keep him honest, especially when Mark Brunell has been bootlegging before. But out in front, excellent blocking by the lineman coming down there. Tilsky getting out there making a good block, and he's been the key to a lot of big plays today.
Just short of the first down. Second down and a short 2 for Brunell at the Chief 45. And trying to pick up the first down as Natron means. It'll be very close depending on the spot. Reggie Tongue again coming in from his safety position to make the stop.
Tackle by number 25, Reggie Tongue, the host of other Chiefs.
And it appears they're going to measure. We mentioned how effective the Kansas City defense has been this year, but it's been more or less a bend but not break defense. I mean, this is a team that's given up some yards, but in a hurry can put on the clamps.
Yeah, they've been very good down in the red zone, and Gunther Cunningham calls this a fast break defense. Defense with a lot of team speed. I think what the Jacksonville Jaguars are doing is saying, okay, you have all that speed over there. We have a lot of size. We're going to go directly at you. And there's Gunther Cunningham, and he's trying to get this thing figured out. But you look at them, they give up, they're 21st in yards allowed. But you get down to the real important stats, they keep people out of the end zone.
So just picking up the first down, Jacksonville with a 14-3 lead. 9 minutes now left in the opening half. McCardell in motion. And a good play-action fake by Brunell, who avoids a couple of tackles, and he brings it out. And Brunell hurdling for another first down by Jacksonville. Gain of 12 by Brunell, and this time he's a little slow in getting out. But he was juking chief after chief in the backfield.
How many people do you think were holding their breath when he took off with that football? I even cringed when he tried to leap over the defensive player, but he shows his mobility here, getting away from 2 people. But he also, with his speed, I mean, the knee brace does slow him down a little bit, but again, ouch. I felt that one up here.
And the line on Brunell. A couple of hurries, 3 knockdowns. Despite all of that, he's picked up 25 yards rushing on 2 carries. He'll let somebody else do the rushing this time as Natron Means gets a pretty good chunk of yardage brought down by John Browning.
You know, you see it over and over again. The defensive linemen, they break free, they get after the quarterback, then they have to chase him down the field. Next play, they're stuck in wind a little bit. What you do if you're Tom Coughlin, you go directly at them. And in each run, you haven't had a run that's kind of, you know, you're taking around, you're trying to get wide around the corner. They've just tried to hit the creases.
Brunell stands in there again, delivers another first down pass play. Jimmy Smith, who's quickly racking up big numbers.
Yeah, but once again, as we mentioned earlier, Mark McMillan out there at the corner in place of Dale Carter, and he just gives too big of a cushion. Brunell gets up there, he sees McMillan backing off before the snap, and he knows exactly what Smith is going to do, delivers the ball on time. The only tough thing about that catch is Jimmy Smith is looking back into the sun.
Yeah, what do? You've got Smith and McCardell out there for Jacksonville. You got to put little McMillan on somebody. He's only 5'7". Smith already over 100 yards in this game as Natron Means looks for more yardage and gets loose and into the end zone. 5 feet 10, 245-pound load. Means is in, and Jacksonville increases its lead, 20-3 now.
Marty Schottenheimer took his team out of pads this week so that they'd be well rested for this ball game. Right now, they look like they're running in sand.
Mike Hollis makes it 21-3. Jacksonville, just under 7 minutes left in the opening half.
We can overemphasize the point that this is a semi-makeshift offensive line with Baselli out, guys moving from position to position, but they are wearing out the front seven of the Kansas City Chiefs. And this front is a big front. 321 pounds when the season started. Well, with Baselli out, they're way down to only 316, but they're still knocking people around. And DeMarco, he says, there has to be a market for guys who are 6'7", 330 pounds. So he's not worried about the fact that he hasn't been a starter on this unit, but he's playing great football today.
Now, DeMarco started the first 9 games at right guard last year before a knee injury, and he ended up losing his job to Rich Tilsky. So DeMarco, very capable guy who felt very comfortable going in there at the right guard position. There he is, second-round draft pick a couple of years ago out of Michigan State. So Jacksonville's lead is now 21-3. And Hollis just drills a low liner, which Vanover fields and takes a knee with. And all 3 of Jacksonville's touchdowns in this game have come in the red zone. As you take a look at Kansas City's defense in the red zone, it's been solid.
I think when they talked about this team, they said, we're going to try and make Jacksonville one-dimensional. They haven't come close to doing that. Jacksonville has been able to run the football. Mark Brunell has done a good job in making something out of nothing on the scrambles. He moves in the pocket for the long pass to Jimmy Smith. So they are dominating the Kansas City Chiefs defensive team right now.
Gannon steps up, and Gannon will throw a nice pump fake to get Schwartz jumping, and that gave Gannon a little more time. Brian Schwartz went for the pump fake by Gannon, and he was able to pick up some extra yards.
That pump fake doesn't work all the time, I can tell you for sure, but that's one thing that a lot of linebackers and defensive linemen love to do. They love to jump up and bat the pass down, and quarterbacks know that. So when they get outside the pocket, they give that little pump fake. Even if you're 6-7 yards downfield, sometimes they'll bite.
I remember number 12 in a Buffalo uniform utilizing the
and they used to laugh at me when I did it. I said, hey, it works the majority of the time.
Well, Gannon just short of the first down, so second down and less than a yard. He'll throw one, and it's incomplete. He wanted Lake Dawson. Deion Figures on the coverage.
Isn't there a book like How to Win Friends and Influence People? You don't win friends at wide receiver when you throw the ball about 12 feet high and stretch them out.
I think Lake Dawson might have said something before the game to Rich Gannon didn't like.
You got to put that ball in what I call the framework of the body, kind of below the helmet and above the knees, and then that slant pattern works.
Completion plus you protect yourself.
Guess who's in on short yardage, 3rd and 1, number 32, Marcus Allen. But they give it to Donnell Bennett, who picks up the first down. Bennett in front of Marcus Allen in the Kansas City backfield, picking up the first down and keeping this drive alive with 6:03 left and counting in the opening half.
When this season started, Marty Schottenheimer had this theme that he wanted to go with called chunks. And that means that we want runs over 10 yards and passes over 20 yards. And really, they're about in the middle of the pack. But today, you've seen all the chunks really by the Jacksonville offense. And Kansas City hasn't had that big play. And Rich Gannon has to produce that for this ball club.
Gannon slings it out to the near side, and it was Andre Rison who had the first down initially. But he was forced to kind of come back to the ball, and they'll give it to him. It's an 11-yard gain. And the fans don't like the spot at all.
They don't, but that's one thing that you want as a wide receiver, especially in a press bail right here. Andre Rison makes him think he's going deep. Ball is excellently thrown. I mean, would probably like to have it a couple yards sooner than that, but Rison makes a great job getting to the marker and get the first down.
Well, I think the tough thing there is the timing between Gannon and Rison. Gannon told us, I haven't had a lot of snaps before this week in practice.
Gannon on the run, in and out of the arms of Kimball Anders.
Yeah, but a good job by Bryant Boyer. A lot of times when you have that play-action fake, that guy will follow that in. Gannon bootlegs. Boyer doesn't bite. He realizes I have outside contain, I have outside contain, I have outside contain. Boyer does a good job, and what he does is he forces him back deep away from the line of scrimmage so he can't get that momentum into the throw.
So second down and 10 at the 42. Give up the middle to Kimball Anders, and Anders close to the 45-yard line, and that will bring up 3rd and 6 or 7.
And this is a crucial down, but what surprised me is when Rich Gannon told us yesterday that he doesn't get many reps in practice. And I know that as a starter, you want the majority of the reps, but how important the backups are nowadays. You'd think that Marty Schottenheimer would give Rich Gannon more reps when Elvis Gerbach was the starting quarterback. That totally surprised me that most of his work was done on the scout team.
Well, I think one of the reasons why he might not have gotten the reps, number one, he's a veteran, but also the fact that Elvis Gerbach was a guy who was new to this ball club, and Marty was just figuring out what Elvis could do well and how he'd function with the new receivers that they had brought in, the new tight end. So a lot of new elements going into this Kansas City offense, and when they finally get the roll, Gerbach goes down.
Kansas City takes a timeout, and we'll remind you that coming up next on most of these NBC stations, it is Game 2 of our doubleheader. Drew Bledsoe and the Patriots travel to Buffalo and Rich Stadium to take on Bruce Smith and the Buffalo Bills. It's a key AFC East divisional showdown that's coming your way in Game 2 of our doubleheader right here on NBC. So we'll have more of a clearer picture of what's going to happen in the AFC East this year. Jim, I mean, you've done some Bills games this year and worked in the AFC East, and so have you, James. How do you guys look at that conference?
Well, number one, you always almost have to give the nod to, I guess, the early nod to New England Patriots, but they've lost like 4 of the last 5 games. I think the last one they won was against the Buffalo Bills, and I know the Bills are excited about playing the Patriots today at home.
Yeah, well, I think another big contest going on is the Jets and the Miami Dolphins. Miami beat them earlier. Now they're in the other part of Florida today.
On 3rd down, Gannon's toss, and that is over the outstretched arm of Andre Rison. That will bring up 4th down. Rison was open.
Yeah, and Rich Gannon knows that he missed an opportunity to convert a 3rd down. Andre Rison had bumped into Deion Figures. Figures is on the ground. Granted, Rison's route gets disrupted. He may not be at the proper depth. But when a guy is that wide open, you just cannot miss him. Andre Rison is not known as the power guy. Both go down. Rison does a good job in getting up. Gannon has to stick that ball on it.
Again, I think it's receiver, quarterback working together in practice.
Louis Aguiar, fake punt. And will he get the first down? Close, but I do not believe he picked it up. Chris Hudson gave Aguiar a shot on the sideline.
It almost looked like that the right side of the Kansas City Chiefs did not think it was going to be a fake. I saw them going out, and it was almost
they had the fake on the whole way. They had that swinging gait going, and Aguiar was pointing for you to block a certain guy. He was telling the guy to block one guy, and instead another guy was just coming up like a missile right through the wall.
Maybe the guys were out there looking like, were you going to throw me the ball? Because they were looking like they were surprised.
Well, Jerry Markbright has called for the sticks to come out. The near side is not the way they figured the first down, so they'll bring him in from the far sideline and see if Aguiar picks up the first down on the gutsy fake punt call by Marty Schottenheimer.
He tends to make calls, take chances, but that's what you like about a coach. It's never boring when you're around Marty Schottenheimer.
Well, you see Jacksonville celebrating, and the Jaguars will take over on downs, and Marty says, that's all right. We gave it a shot.
And you could see Marty and Schottenheimer, mouth, that's fine. We gave it a shot. We went after it. Aguiar just doesn't get it. One guy comes straight through. Aguiar makes a good attempt. I mean, that's a pretty bold move for a punter to try and go over the top.
Watch him point for his blockers here. Okay, get him.
And instead of pointing, I think you should just run a little faster.
Okay.
So So Kansas City looking for a spark, trailing 21-3, and after the fake punt blows up in their faces somewhat, Jacksonville takes over at its own 49. Excellent field position. The Jaguars with 2 timeouts left, 4:13 remaining in the half. Brunell, incomplete. James Hasty with some nice blanket coverage on McCardell.
Brunell's pass intended for Keenan McCardell. James Hasty on the cover.
Now let's take a look at the first half possessions for Jacksonville. Very impressive. The second possession resulting in the punt, but 3 touchdowns and 4 tries in the first half.
And I think Marty Schottenheimer was actually sending a message to his defense. He said, I expected you guys to play a lot better start, even though we didn't pick up the first down on the gamble. You guys have to play defense.
Brunell to the air again. In the flats, James Stewart trying to set up the screen, and that was Wayne Simmons, former #1 pick of the Green Bay Packers back in '93, that the Chiefs acquired just a month ago. He has a Super Bowl ring with the Green Bay Packers, and he was available for a trade for Kansas City when Seth Joyner came off IR for the Packers, and he's paying dividends for the Chiefs.
You know, but the thing that we got from both Marty Schottenheimer and Gunther Cunningham is this guy does not have a sunny disposition.
Well, that's the rap sometimes you hear in the league, that Wayne Simmons can be disgruntled at times, but Gunther Cunningham has told us he's had no problems at all coaching the former #1 pick.
Yeah, they tried to move to get him during the offseason in February. He came in for a visit.
False start.
We have a false start on the big guys
offense.
moving around. But
5-yard penalty.
But Wayne Simmons is a guy who, Gunther Cunningham says, everybody can't coach him. He says, you know, we're the same type of personality. If I was a player, I'd be like Wayne Simmons. I don't have to be happy and bright and cheery. I'm going out there to hit people, to knock them over. And you don't find a lot of guys who are just very conversational when they do that for a living.
So after the penalty, it backs Jacksonville up 5, 3rd and 15 now from its own 44. Here comes Derek Thomas around the side, and Brunell avoids the pressure and slings it out of bounds. And that'll bring up 4th down. And the punt unit, a flag, has now been thrown. As you look at Derek Thomas.
I think it's illegal downfield.
It is.
Now, why does that? Why do you put your hand on your head if somebody's downfield?
Spink. Ineligible man downfield. Number 73, offense. Penalty is declined. 4th down.
I think he put his hands out to his side and say, big guy rumbling around downfield.
So here is Brian Barker, who boomed one 51 yards in his first punt. And to Mark Vanover, who, like Willie Jackson, has had some excellent returns today. Kansas City. Low snap. And Vanover takes this one a la Willie Mays over his shoulder and hurdles close to the 20-yard line. Return of 12 after the 48-yard punt. So take a look at some of the other scores. Miami on top of the New York Jets 7-3, and we understand that Dan Marino has indeed started that game at quarterback for Miami.
And he should, because, I mean, all the things that he's done against the New York Jets, I don't care if he has a hurt ankle, a sore knee, Dan Marino plays his best games against the New York Jets.
Yeah, I think when you flip the coin on the other side of the ball, Bill Parcells has inserted Glenn Foley as a starter after subbing him for Neil O'Donnell for 2 weeks in a row. They really need that production out of Foley now that he's the starter.
Kansas City with a couple of timeouts left. 3:46 remaining. They keep it on the ground to Donnell Bennett, and Bennett surging his way ahead for a gain of 4.
It'll be interesting to see what Paul Hackett and Marty Schottenheimer decide to do here in this series. You have 3.5 minutes to go in the half. They're backed up in their own territory, and they haven't been able to stop Jacksonville offensively. Offensively, punt. They had a field goal, a nice kick by Stoyanovich, and then another punt.
Gannon with a play action, and he is crushed. Don Davey all over Gannon. 3rd sack of the season for Davey.
Gannon tackled behind the
you can almost call this a coverage sack, too, because he does have time to step up in the pocket. He goes first receiver. He just doesn't have. I think he just didn't want to force the ball to the outside because there was excellent coverage.
Yeah, Dave Thomas had a blanket thrown over Andre Rison. He's tried that same out move again where he stuttered a little bit, just can't get away from Thomas. And Tom Coughlin said, you put a guy on top of Andre Rison, that's the best thing to do against him. We don't have guys who are great in bump and run so far. Thomas and Figures have covered him very well.
Here comes Lageman on Gannon, and he knocks the ball out of his hands. The Chiefs recover as Dave Zott falls on it, but Lageman was coming around the corner and make the big play. Remember, he picked up the sack earlier.
Timeout for the Jaguars. They need to stop the clock. They're going to get the ball back.
Well, we'll reach the 2-minute warning in 17 seconds as the clock stops with 2:17.
Yeah, and Tom Coughlin had been on the field for about 15 seconds trying to call that, but because the crowd was so crazy about the big play. Jeff Lageman is out here on the right side of the screen. Actually, he's on the other side of the screen. Here's Lageman, and he's outside the tight end. So what that does is it makes the tackle have to go out and reach him. And once again, he beats Glenn Parker around the corner. That's a matchup, Lageman against Parker. They've seen each other when Lageman was with the Jets, and he's beaten Glenn Parker on more than one occasion. I can tell by the bumps and the bruises on my partner that he's just shaking his head affirmative.
It almost looked like at times Glenn Parker thought he had a little help because he went around him. Kimball Anders all of a sudden looked, and there goes Lageman right around him. And anytime you have an athlete that only weighs like, I mean, he told us 265 pounds, that's where his biggest asset is, getting around the corner.
I think Parker has to go out and meet him. He can't let Lageman get up that steam. You know, defensive ends like to dip that shoulder, and he's letting him get that dip, and his speed built up, and he's just beating him around the corner.
Well, last time we saw Aguiar on the field, it was the fake punt. He's going to try to boom this one. Low spiral to Reggie Barlow at the 36. Heads to the near side, picks up some blocks. Flags are down as Barlow gets into Kansas City territory at the 46-yard line. 48-yard punt by Aguiar, but a flag is down as Reggie Tongue made the special teams tackle.
You know, that'll go down as a 10-yard penalty, that block in the back, but it is going to cost the Jacksonville Jaguars about 30 yards of real estate.
At least.
Illegal block, number 28, on the return, 10-yard penalty, first down.
Dana Hall is just running, trying to make something happen, trying to get to the wall for Barlow, who had great success last week against Tennessee, and you get anxious. But when you hit a man and you can read the name on his back, you normally get a penalty.
Reggie Barlow had a touchdown called back last week after taking it the distance, and another fine return by him.
And you know,
hurt by a penalty.
Even having a conversation with Tom Coughlin, you know that this is something he doesn't accept real well. Penalties on special teams, especially blocks in the back. I mean, he's an intense coach, and he just doesn't take very well penalties, especially stupid penalties.
Well, both of these coaches, you know, in the takeaway giveaway ratio, tops number 1 and 2 in the AFC. Jaguars come into this one at +9, tops in the AFC. Quick give up the middle, and it's James Stewart who gets across the 40-yard line. As we reach the 2-minute warning, Jacksonville still has one timeout left. They lead at 21-3. 2 minutes left in this opening half in Jacksonville. The Jaguars on top by 18. And a reminder for the Domino's Pizza NFL and NBC halftime report. Greg Gumbel, Chris Collinsworth, Sam Weish, all the highlights and scores from around the NFL. Plus, they will preview the second game of our doubleheader. New England and Buffalo, both those teams at 5-4 in the AFC East on the heels of the New York Jets. Speaking of the Jets, they're playing at Miami. It is the Dolphins holding a 7-3 lead down the way in South Florida. And Brunel stats for the day, 7 of 11. Interesting in talking to Gunther Cunningham yesterday.
170 yards.
Wow. I was just looking at that, too. I mean, yards per attempt is way up there.
75 of those came on the pass play to Jimmy Smith, and Brunell has been spreading it around. Smith with the big game, 108 yards. He had that a long time ago. One of them was 75 with Cardell, Brown, Halleck, and Mitchell also with a catch. He's averaging 24 yards per attempt, Brunell is. Goes to the air again, and he's got Pete Mitchell. He spins his way out. And Mitchell deep into Kansas City territory to the 32 with 1:48 and counting. James Hasty finally brought the big tight end down, but not before a gain of 25.
Yeah, they have plenty of time here remaining in the half. Composure, get the play call, get everybody set, no penalties.
Brunell to the air again, going downfield, and he can't get it. Jimmy Smith wants a flag. Mark McMillan on the coverage.
There it is. Did you see it? What did Brunell call that? The Mighty Mouse pose?
Mighty Mouse. And he said he didn't want to see him do that.
Yeah.
He did it there, but it's not an interception. It's not a turnover.
Yeah, but what James Hasty said is, he's kind of like the clown at the rodeo. He takes the dangerous job. He enjoys playing to the crowd. He's real impressed with Mark McMillan. He says, I didn't know the guy was that small. I knew he was small, but until I saw him in the locker room, I thought he was somebody's little brother.
That's a battle for McMillan all day. Again, 5'7", covering 6'1" Jimmy Smith. Brunell backpedaling, throws it away. That'll bring up third down and stops the clock with 1:25 left.
And we have another big guy downfield.
Flags downfield as well, yep.
The minute you throw the timing of the screen off, those big guys are trained to go out there and count 1, 2, like a horse does with that one leg, and then they take off.
And there it is.
I'm going to change that signal during the offseason. I'm going to go to a referee's meeting. Say, put your arms way out wide and waddle from side to side. That's a big guy downfield.
If you change one thing this season, that's going to be it.
And we'll have to wait till next year to see if it comes in.
We'll look forward to hearing from Jerry Seaman on that.
Number 72, offense. Penalties declined. Third down.
But also what they try to do is, they're taught to go out there and count to 3, but you're supposed to listen for a go call. And if you don't get the go call, you don't go past the line of scrimmage.
Now we mentioned Ben Coleman replacing Vaselli at the left tackle. Look what he's done today. No sacks allowed. Derek Thomas is lined up on the right side. Brunell back to pass. Pass held onto by Jimmy Smith. Mark McMillan, no, but it's incomplete. McMillan gave him a shot. Incomplete.
I know that Mark Brunell doesn't enjoy McMillan's actions after the play, but I really enjoy his play. I mean, here's a guy, he brings all of 148 pounds into that. He takes the ball away from a guy who's your biggest, strongest receiver.
And he likes to be put in that role, too. I mean, he's a lot smaller, but who cares? I can play the game of football, and I can play it just as good as you.
Well, you see the season-long 52. This would tie a career long for Mike Hollis at 53 yards.
I don't know, Dan.
A timeout call by Kansas City as they ice Mr. Hollis.
You look at the flags on the goalposts, and really you can't tell whether the wind is blowing in his face behind him, but if we're attempting a 52-yarder, you'd think there might be a slight breeze at his back.
I think they called timeout so they could wait for the breeze to kick up.
Either the breeze to kick up or decide, should we go for it on 4th down? Because if they go for it on 4th down, they don't get it. Kansas City has pretty good field position.
And if they don't make the field goal, Kansas City will take the ball over. But if you look at their track record, they haven't been able to move the ball against the Jacksonville defense all day.
It would be a 52-yard official attempt for Hollis, so it would be just one short of his career long.
A lot of smiles in the huddle out there on the field. The guys getting ready for the field goal attempt. And this is a totally diametric to what these two teams have gone through this season. Both teams have had competitive games the whole year. This would really be Jacksonville's first sort of blowout if they can maintain this throughout the second half.
Dave Wydell is the snapper. Brian Barker is the holder. A 52-yard attempt for Mike Hollis. Whistles come in and stop the play as Hollis Hollis bangs it with plenty of leg. It's plenty of distance for Hollis.
Wow, was that plenty of leg.
Was a timeout called by Kansas City? What do you got, Jerry?
The ball was blown dead. Kansas City is not entitled to the second charge timeout. We'll replay the down.
Is not entitled.
Well, you can't call back-to-back timeouts after the 2-minute warning has started. But, I mean, that is really a bonus for the Kansas City Chiefs. They got what they wanted out of that. They wanted a timeout to unrattle this guy. Marty's not happy. He thought I could get a timeout. You know, Marty's on all those rule committees and all that. He knows the rules, but he still wants to bend them a little bit.
But he had enough time. He has to do it again and think about it a little bit longer.
You can see Hollis is with the wind just a little bit as the flags blow on top. He really gets a leg into this one as well and drills it through. Mike Hollis on the year is now 2 of 2 from 50 yards and out. Whitell, the good snap. Barker, the hold. This one didn't quite have the distance of the previous one, but those are 2 pretty good back-to-back kicks by Hollis. Knew he didn't have quite the leg on the last one, but it's enough.
Marty's trying to get the wind to blow the other way. He's leaning, lean. Oh, rats.
Well, when Mike Hollis gets a shot from 50 yards and out, he's usually good. Look at that, 6 of 8
That's
in his
impressive.
career. And the Jacksonville lead has increased to 24-3 with 1 minute and 15 ticks left.
With solid legs like all the kickers in the National Football League now, you ever think Tom Dempsey's record's ever going to be broken?
Well, wasn't it last week when we had Steve Christie take a shot at it in
John Hall
Buffalo?
John Hall from the Jets lined up to kick one from 68 yards. And I think the biggest problem, the only time that you can get one for Dempsey, the 63 plus, is at the end of the half or at the end of the ball game. Because if you miss from way back, you're giving the other team the ball from where you missed.
It wouldn't hurt to have a nice gale force wind behind field goal attempt as well. Vanover comes up to the 15, hauls this one in on the run, gets just across the 30-yard line, and Kansas City, with 1 timeout left and trailing 24-3, will take over. And we can update that score down further south in Florida, 10-7 now. The Jets on top of Miami. Randy Jordan, one of the original Jaguars, is hurt.
Charge timeout for Jacksonville. This is the 32nd timeout. Standing by.
I mentioned the road trip for Tom Coughlin. He now has 4 of his next 5 games at home. He's got Tennessee, and then they travel to Cincinnati, and then Baltimore in New England. But Kansas City really has the tough schedule coming up. We mentioned at the top that Rich Gannon will take them through this schedule. They're here in Jacksonville today. Next week, they host Denver. Then they go to Seattle. Then they host San Francisco.
Yeah, but you talked about Jacksonville, and at the opening, you mentioned that they'd won 10 ball games in a row here. Well, this is their 21st home game, but only 5 times have they played against a team with a winning record. So this was supposed to be that big matchup that they were supposed to, put up or show up. And for Jacksonville, they put up today.
Your report on the pregame show indicated that, well, maybe perhaps could Kansas City look ahead to Denver, but you mentioned that since Rich Gannon was being inserted in the lineup and Elvis Gerbach out, that they really couldn't afford to do that and would not do that.
Yeah, but if you look back to Monday night, the Kansas City Chiefs at intermission, they're leading 13-10. They don't produce any points in the second half. So you add that up, the last 4 quarters, they've now produced 3 points. And they haven't really shown any sparks offensively. The only guy who Rich Gannon has looked for in the passing game has been Andre Rison. hit Gonzalez earlier. But the other wide receivers, he's been Hyde and Lake a couple of times. We had the reports that Kevin Lockett, the rookie, would play. This is an offensive unit that is not equipped to come from behind.
No, they're not. And I think you almost have to put them in a mode that if you get down coming out the second half, maybe go in a 2-minute style offense. I know some teams have been successful doing that, and I'm not just saying it because I've been in a no-huddle situation, but pretty much that's all they have to look forward to. I mean, neither one of these teams should or probably are looking ahead because this game is very important for both of them.
Paul Hackett, the offensive coordinator, who helped the evolution of the West Coast offense, which Rich Gannon says he loves to be a part of. He talked about the footwork, Jim, and how that was such a key component of it and how he liked it so much.
Well, number one is in the West Coast offense, it's more timing than anything. You have different elevations. You have your quick slant. You have guys coming across the middle. But it's not so much having to move your feet from left to right. It's more going from say 5 or 6 yards to 8 or 9 yards on the same side of the field. So it's pretty much what you want as a quarterback, going through repetitions where you have to go from maybe your underneath receiver to your bigger play. You look at some teams, they might even look to the big play before they look to the one that's 8, 9, 10-yard completion.
Well, again, Randy Jordan is still on the turf, and they're bringing the stretcher out now for number 23.
There's Greg Mineski, and he's going to be the guy who ends up hitting Randy Jordan. See, both guys are low, and it's kind of that head-to-head contact.
Well, we certainly saw a nasty hit last week delivered on Ted Popson of the Kansas City Chiefs, the tight end, who took a nasty hit from Donnell Wilford. Fortunately, he's all right, but that had the look of something that could have been more serious as they continue to attend to Jordan.
Yeah, the good thing about Popson, Marty told us, James and Dan, was he get hit on more of the side of his head, not so much in the front, because, I mean, when you get hit, and it's, you talk about your neck injuries, boy, when you hit him on the side, that's a lot better than directly on.
Well, that's certainly a welcome sight. Jordan leading the field without the stretcher. He scored the first touchdown in Jacksonville history. It was a 71-yard catch from Steve Berline. And again, one of the original 10 Jaguars to come on board. And it's a good sight to see him off the field, on his feet. So Kansas City, after the delay, 1:11 left and 1 timeout left. Dawson, Rison, and Danon Hughes, the receivers for Gannon, but they choose to keep it on the ground, and Kimball Anders is across the 35-yard line.
I don't know if I agree with this because they don't have bad field position, and if you're down 24-3, you got to try to get some points on the board, at least 3.
Gannon will go to the air. This time, Don Davies circling to chase him, and he's finally brought down by Clyde Simmons. Joel Smengi, number 99, who brought him down.
Yeah, and Smengi presents a problem, maybe not in this situation, but in a normal situation, the defensive line, he either lines up at defensive line, he can line up at linebacker, and the offensive line, they're scratching their head. They're going, okay, which one is he on this side? Do I have to block him? Does the back have him, or what?
Chiefs use their last timeout, 34 seconds left.
I saw Rich Gannon signaling for a timeout, but that was with 41, 42 seconds. They let an extra 8 seconds go off the clock, and that could be different between maybe trying a field goal or an extra play. But first of all, they have to get the first down here.
I think an even bigger concern for the Kansas City Chiefs now is that almost every time that Rich Gannon has gone back to pass, he's been flushed out of the pocket. There's been pressure in his face. Paul Hackett, when they go in at halftime, they're going to have to figure out a way to block Jacksonville. And it's not that they haven't, they're not doing anything exotic. They're not sending 5 guys out in the routes. They're keeping 6 guys, and 4 guys from Jacksonville are beating the 6 for Kansas City.
Gannon 0 for 3 on his last 3. That's what he's done on 3rd downs today. Again, the Chiefs without any timeouts. Gannon on target for a first down. That is Lake Dawson hauling it in. But the clock will continue to roll as Dawson was unable to get out of bounds after the gain of 13.
Well, he ran a deep out, but he was more so lined up close to the numbers. You want to get yourself a little wider so if you catch the ball, you can get out of bounds.
And just spiking it down, Gannon stops the clock with 13 ticks remaining.
Yeah, you can see the frustration level. I'm watching Andre Rison kind of snapped his chin strap there a little bit. He's coming back, playing against the team that he's faithful. And, Andre Rison, almost anybody in the league, when you get to your sixth team, almost any team is a team that you played against before. But the way that he departed Jacksonville...
Wait a minute. How many teams did you play for?
But I didn't depart the way that he did.
Oh, okay.
The way that he departed in the middle of last season, goes to the Packers, ends up winning the Super Bowl. He's frustrated that they can't get it going today.
Well, they have 4 wideouts, including the rookie Kevin Lockett in the game for Kansas City. Gannon being chased, dumps it across the middle to Kim Melander's incomplete. Clock stops with 6 seconds left. Well, Kansas City certainly could use the same fate that Jacksonville enjoyed at the beginning of the season when Mark Brunell did not start until the 3rd game. It was a couple of backup quarterbacks that filled the bill for Tom Coughlin. Rob Johnson started the first game. They won that. Steve Matthews started the 2nd game, and they won that. So Marty Schottenheimer hoping that Rich Gannon can do the same in place of Elvis Gerbach, who is out for a minimum of 4 weeks. So it's Gannon taking the Chiefs in a critical stretch in this month of November, moving on the right side. And it appeared that maybe Glenn Parker came out early.
In the rule books, offensive penalty last 2 minutes and a half. Don't they run 10 seconds off the clock? And if they do, this half is over.
Number 62 offense. 5-yard penalty. 3rd down.
Jim, your old offensive lineman caught for the infraction there.
Well, I think he wanted to make sure, number one, he blocked Loggeman. When Loggeman started coming before the snap, I guess the crowd noise getting into it, he tried to get back a little too soon.
First penalty for Kansas City, 3rd and 15. This should be the final play of the half. And Gannon goes to the sidelines, and Lake Dawson gets out of bounds, but the clock had already gone to double zeros. So Jacksonville in control in the first half at home, looking for their 11th straight win. They're up 24-3 as we go to Greg Gumbel in our New York studios.
This is the Domino's Pizza NFL on NBC Halftime Report. Brought to you by Domino's Pizza. Domino's, delivering a million smiles a day.
Welcome to our studios in New York. Greg Gumbel along with the usual suspects, Sam Weish and Chris Collinsworth, and we will run down scores and highlights for you. Not a bad football game going on in Miami between the Dolphins and the New York Jets. At halftime, the Dolphins with the lead on the Jets by a score of 14-10. That's Glenn Foley getting the start quarterback in place of Neil O'Donnell. The Dolphins, however, went 80 yards on their opening drive. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar caps it off with a 4-yard touchdown, and Miami up 7-0. Second quarter, Foley under pressure, hit by Jerry Wilson. He was able to continue. Neil O'Donnell looking on and hopefully ready on the sidelines. Foley 3rd and 15. Keyshawn Johnson here. This is a 25-yard pickup to the Miami 15. It set up a Jet field goal. It was 7-3. And then Foley scrambling. He will look for and find tight end Kyle Brady at the 5-yard line. He'll make it to the end zone to complete the 18-yard touchdown. Jets looked like they were going to go to the locker room with a lead, but before the half, Marino to Brett Perriman, 23 yards and a touchdown. And the Miami Dolphins at halftime with a 14-10 lead on the New York Jets. Glenn Foley at quarterback. How's he doing? 11 of 24, 165 yards and a touchdown. In the pregame show, we talked about his effectiveness. He went in with a 43% effectiveness rating. That's down to 33% as he scored a touchdown on just 1 of 5 drives in the first half. But he began to pick things up, Sam, at the end of the first half.
And it looks to me like Bill Parcells has committed himself to Glenn Foley. I think he's brought this kid along beautifully. Even in this ball game, he started out running the ball, didn't ask much of him as a passer, and then as it went along more and more, the one thing that I think you see, even though his numbers were down earlier in the half, they were not as bad as the numbers that they were worse actually than the numbers that Neil O'Donnell had when he pulled him the week before. So this guy's going with Glenn Foley.
Yeah,
right
but
now.
you know what, though? Glenn Foley in this ball game has been faced with a lot of third down and long situations, very tough situations for the quarterback, and more often than not, he's come up with the play, and I think that has been the difference. That's what Neil O'Donnell wasn't able to do when he was the quarterback of this team.
All right, guys, in Jacksonville, a pretty good day for the Jaguars so far at halftime, 24-3. They lead the Kansas City Chiefs. That's Tony Baselli out 3 to 4 weeks with a sprained ankle. Jags didn't need him today, at least so far. They took the opening kickoff and drove 52 yards in 6 plays. A very mobile Mark Brunell, 4-yard touchdown pass to Pete Mitchell, 7-0. And then Brunell in the second quarter over the middle to Jimmy Smith. Watch Jimmy Smith turn it on and go 75 yards almost to the end zone. Dale Carter doesn't give up, pulls him down at the 1, but James Stewart went in on the very next play to make it 14-0. And then Natron means some very nice moves here en route to a 14-yard touchdown run. Before the half, Mike Hollis kicked a 52-yard field goal. It is a 24-3 Jacksonville lead. The pregame show, Chris was talking about how very much in love he is with that Kansas City offense, but that was with Elvis Grbac.
Do you ever leave anything alone that I make the slightest error with?
Greg Gumbel's taking me on these days. I read it somewhere.
You know, Elvis Grbac, though, was the quarterback when those guys were playing that. You like that, didn't you? When they were playing that well. Now Rich Gannon unable to do the same things that Elvis Grbac could do. But this Jacksonville team, with Mark Brunell healthy and Natron Means, even without Tony Baselli and that offensive line all shook up, they've been awesome today.
Sam.
Hey, listen, Jacksonville is taking on Kansas City even more than you're taking on Chris. Big deal. You know, last week the strategy for Marty Schottenheimer was that he would let the guys go out of pads, they'd rest their legs, be ready to go. I don't think they're going to get a chance to work without pads next week. They're getting pushed around by Jacksonville.
All right, guys, in Dallas, the Arizona Cardinals and the Cowboys, it's a 10-3 lead for Dallas. The difference in this game, Aikman and Herschel Walker, 10-yard touchdown pass. In Green Bay, the Packers with just a 3-0 lead on the Rams. The last time the Packers lost at Lambeau Field, the Rams handed them a 3-point defeat, the opening game of the 1995 season. In Minnesota, the Vikings continue to roll. They are leading the Bears in the second half, 21-10. In Atlanta, Tampa Bay with a 10-point lead on the Falcons early in the second half. In Washington, the Detroit Lions have yanked starting quarterback Scott Mitchell, replaced him with Frank Reich. They have no points on the board. Washington leads at 13-0. Milestone day for Barry Sanders yet again. Sanders has become the number 3 all-time rusher in National Football League history, trailing only Walter Payton and Eric Dickerson. In Indianapolis, where the Colts are looking for their first victory of the year, it is a 7-7 tie. The Bengals and the Colts. That's Kelly Holcomb making his first NFL starting quarterback for the Colts. Holcomb led the Colts into the red zone, but his pass intended for Marvin Harrison picked off by Ashley Ambrose, who returns 28 yards to the Cincinnati 33. On the very next play, Jeff Blake to tight end Marco Battaglia, but he is stripped of the football. Steve Morrison recovers and returns 25 yards to the Bengal 5. But the Colts have had their share of problems protecting Holcomb. Sam Shade on the sack. The Bengals' 4th sack of the first half, and the Colts missed the field goal. Still scoreless in the second quarter, 3rd and 9. Blake to Tony McGee. 15-yard touchdown, 7-0 Bengals. But with just over a minute to play in the half, Holcomb tosses his first NFL touchdown pass, a 6-yarder to Marvin Harrison. And it's always nice to have some support in the stands. His parents and his wife said, yeah, we knew he could do it if only he could get the chance. It's a 7-7 tie in the third quarter. When we come back, we'll talk about the second half of our NBC doubleheader as New England visits Buffalo. First, we'll step aside for these messages from your local station.
Domino's Pizza NFL on NBC Halftime Report. Brought to you by Domino's Pizza. Domino's, delivering 1 million smiles a day.
Greg Gumbel back in our New York studio. The second half of our doubleheader features the key AFC East game in Buffalo between the Bills and the New England Patriots. With a report, Dick Enberg, Paul McGuire, and Phil Simms.
Greg, it's been a schizophrenic year for the Patriots. The defending AFC champions, they start out, win their first 4 in a row, outscore the opposition 130-40. But they've fallen on tough times, and it's almost creating a paranoia amongst the New England camp.
Don't you get the idea all day long that it's just been too easy for New England? Bledsoe's pass to Colts for the touchdown. Curtis Martin racing for the end zone. And the touchdown. Bledsoe has 5 for the touchdown.
They embarrassed us. You know, if we want to get to the playoffs, we got to play with teams of New
England's caliber. So it's going to be a big challenge for us. It's going to be kind of a measuring stick.
Since defeating the Bills, New England has lost 3 in a row. They've fallen out of first place in the AFC East.
This is an extremely important test for us, opportunity and challenge, all of those things. We've got to get back to playing football the way we're capable of playing.
I'm not sensing a loss of confidence on the team. I'm not sensing any of that. It's just kind of an attitude. The guys are actually a little bit pissed off now. They want to get out there and prove that the last few weeks have been, not us.
The challenge for Pete Carroll, all he has to do is look at the schedule. After losing 3 in a row to the Jets, Packers, and Vikings, still on the road today here in Buffalo, next week at Tampa Bay, then finally at home against AFC Eastern rival Miami. The serving of a challenge has been made to the Patriots.
Well, I love what Pete Carroll did this week. He went out and challenged 2 of his stars, Chris Slade and Willie McGinnis. He says, I need production from you. Look what they've done the last 3 weeks. No sacks, no forced fumbles. That's one of the reasons why this team is struggling. If you want to get out of a tailspin, which they're in, challenge your stars. Tell them you got to make some plays.
They've been the David Copperfields. They've been invisible the last 3 weeks. Revenge on the mind of the Bills.
Well, the Bills went to New England a month ago and were totally embarrassed up there, 33-6. And revenge is a great factor in the National Football League. The Buffalo Bills looked at the film, went to Marv Levy during the course of the week and said, hey, Coach, these guys are not 33-6 better than we are. He said, is that right? So he challenged his entire football team. He said to them, if that's the case, then all you have to do Sunday is to go out and prove it. So he left the open thing to everybody.
And the Patriots, they might find some solace in the fact that they played well against the Bills lately.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. No matter what the circumstances in this game, Drew Bledsoe seems to play well against the Buffalo Bills. Bad weather, a great defense the Bills have, but look at his record, completions, throwing for a lot of yards, and it kind of reminds me, talking to Drew Bledsoe yesterday, when we used to play the Washington Redskins back when both of us were pretty good teams, we just knew somehow, some way, Bill Parcells was going to find a way to beat Joe Gibbs.
Oh, Joe will love to hear that.
Yeah,
we'll hear the rebuttal next week. Well, the Bills are at home. They've got the home field going for them, but the Patriots are favored to win today. Back to you, Greg.
All right, Dick, I'm not going to tell Joe about that. Most of you will see the Patriots and the Bills from Buffalo. Others will watch Seattle at San Diego, our doubleheader game, 4 o'clock Eastern Time. And our NFL and NBC halftime activities continue.
They don't know where it...
Halftime in Jacksonville, the Jaguars enjoying a big lead over the Kansas City Chiefs, 24-3. Dan Hicks back with Jim Kelly and James Lofton. It's been an impressive opening half for Mark Brunell and the Jaguars, looking for their 11th straight victory here in Jacksonville.
Well, Mark Brunell spreading the ball around. He's picking out each and every receiver, but I think the key to the first half was his offensive linemen are doing an excellent job.
Meanwhile, James, what's wrong with Kansas City? Not an encouraging opening half for Rich Gannon as he takes over for Elvis Gerbach.
Marty Schottenheimer said, we have every reason to lose this ball game. Excuses. Played on Monday night. You have a short week. The guys are sore. Quarterback is hurt. Tight end looks bad. Or he's out. And you know what? They've used about every one of those excuses. They need to give up those excuses and start to play football.
In the meantime, Jacksonville has been very impressive, as we mentioned at the top. A revamped offensive line. Tony Baselli, their best offensive lineman, out for this game. As we take a look at the Coors Light halftime stats, no turnovers, but look at the total yards numbers for Jacksonville, more than doubling up Kansas City.
Especially, in order to win football games, you got to be able to mix it up. You got to be able to run the football and pass it. Jacksonville has been able to do both today.
Well, Kansas City will get the first shot at the football as Mike Hollis kicks a low line drive, and it's taken by an upback just across the 20-yard line. That's Greg Minuski, who picks it up for Kansas City, and they will begin their opening drive across the 35-yard line. So here comes Rich Gannon again, the quarterback for Kansas City, with Elvis Gerbach out with the broken collarbone. And the quarterback comparisons, as you can see, Brunell, 195 yards through the air. Gannon starts the half off with a pass, and he starts it off close to the first down. Lake Dawson might have come back to the ball and been short of the first down, but it's a gain of 9 anyway, so a good start for Gannon.
Well, you got to like what they're doing. They came right out and they were going to throw the football. It's not so much a lead play off tackle. They came out and they said, hey, we have to get some first downs. We're going to have to mix it up. We're going to have to throw on first down.
Second down and 1, Greg Hill turning the corner for the first down, and Hill cuts it back upfield to the Jacksonville 40-yard line, and it was Lake Dawson on the outside, number 80, who threw a nice block to help spring Hill for 13.
And at the tail end of the run, it was very easy for Greg Hill just to step out of bounds. But what he does, he cuts back in right at that tail end and picks up another 4 or 5 yards. And it's not so much the yardage as the attitude that we're going to do everything we can to get back in this ball game. We haven't just cashed it in.
Hill averaging about 7 yards a carry in this game. Gannon to the air, in and out of the arms of Tony Gonzalez, and Gonzalez knew it was a catchable ball.
You know, the tough thing about that, Gonzalez is running what you call a corner route. On the outside, the receiver is Lake Dawson. Lake Dawson is supposed to be fast enough to go down and clear that outside zone. I would venture to say that if these two guys lined up in a foot race, Lake Dawson, who's a 190-pound receiver, would not outrun Tony Gonzalez. So you get a disparity there. Instead of Lake being way down the field and clearing out for Gonzalez, he can't get up enough speed to clear out that area for Gonzalez.
On second down and 10, they give it to Greg Hill, and Hill gets it out to the 33, 34-yard line before Travis Davis knocks him down.
That time, I think Rich Gannon, from start to finish, came back. He knew he had Greg Hill on the flat. He just wanted to make sure he put the linebackers where he wanted. Get the ball in the hands of a back that can make something happen. Got a few yards closer to the first down, but I think Rich Gannon knows what type of back Hill is and what he means to this offense.
Gannon hears it from the crowd now on 3rd and 4. And it is Kimball Anders spinning his way for the first down. He does so many things. Not only a great back out of the backfield through the air, but he can pick up the tough yards when you need him to as well.
And that's the second time that they've used Kimball Anders on 3rd down. In a good change of pace. You remember in the opening stanza in the first quarter, 3rd and 7, they throw a screen pass to Kimball Anders. And I'm scratching my head going, you don't throw a screen pass on 3rd and 7. But they understand what Kimball Anders can do once he gets the ball in his arms. And that time he just pops right through a nice hole on the left side.
Important opening drive for Kansas City to begin this second half, trailing 24-3. Gannon holds on a bit too long. The ball is loose, and Jacksonville has it. Clyde Simmons put the shot on Gannon. And I don't think Gannon ever saw him.
Once again, Rich Gannon is looking down the field for Lake Dawson. And I hate to get on one guy's case, but Lake Dawson must run about 4.7 in the 40. He's waiting and waiting for this guy to come open. On the backside, Criswell is blocking him. He has help from the running back. And Clyde Simmons beats both guys and knocks the ball out of the hands of Rich Gannon.
Career sack 107 for Clyde Simmons, and Jacksonville takes over. Big turnover. Up the middle, they start with a good run. And Kansas City's defense better not bend or break on this drive, because Jacksonville could ostensibly put the game away here.
This is where Derek Thomas has to take a leadership role and get these guys together, because this could put the game away, especially playing on the road in front of a big crowd, over 70,000 fans here. You get everybody rocking and rolling in this place, it's going to be hard to come back.
Gain of 9, second down and 1. James Stewart picks up the first down and more. Jacksonville did a nice job in the first half of spreading it around. You saw all the passing yards by Brunell, and they also gave Stewart his chances, and they also gave Means his chances.
Well, James talked about this earlier. I mean, he made a good point of them shuffling the offensive line around, but today they're just dominating the Kansas City Chiefs defensive line. They're pushing them where they want them. The backs are getting probably over an average of 6 yards a carry.
But that's a good job by James Stewart, a play that starts out to the right, being patient enough to work it back to the left.
1st and 10 from the Chief 48. Means is the lone setback for Brunell. Quick drop by Brunell. Pete Mitchell gave it a shot, couldn't haul it in.
I know that's a play that I know when I was playing with James and Andre Reed, we'd love to get the ball out into their hands, and I know Mark Brunell says the same thing. Throw that quick 6-7 yard hitch, and it wasn't completed there, but that's a play that looks so easy, but it can become a big play.
I think, most quarterbacks have to think, is the guy guarding my guy, is he going to come up and just burst on this ball? That ball was thrown behind Mitchell, obviously to keep it away from the defensive back.
And the give to Means. Before that play, Jacksonville's team was averaging better than 6 yards a carry as a flag comes in. I mean, they are. That offensive line is dominating Kansas City up front.
I didn't see the flag thrown early, so what I'm guessing is that there's going to be some type of personal foul, a late hit, and when you're the Kansas City Chiefs and you're trying to get something started, press them, trying to show that you're the tougher team, they're not going to push us around.
There's no foul for unnecessary roughness. No foul.
No foul. Well, maybe the whistle hadn't blown, but somebody's coming in there and trying to clean up around the pile. They're trying to get a hit on the running back, push those guys back. The guy decided to pick the flag up after he had already thrown it.
Probably trying to create a turnover.
There's Baselli watching it all. Again, not only Jacksonville's best offensive lineman, he misses his first start in 37 games, but Mark Brunell's best friend. He really feels comfortable when Baselli is at the left tackle, but Coleman doing a tremendous job today, and that's a nice pass to Jimmy Smith. And Smith picks up the first down. Smith already over 100 yards today as another flag comes in. That'll come back, holding against Jacksonville. So right when we praise the Jacksonville line.
Holding, number 72, offense. 10-yard penalty, 3rd down.
Leon Searcy.
His hands like, what did I do? I didn't do anything wrong.
I think the tough thing for Searcy on that play is he's in the direction of where the screen is going. So what he has to do, because his guy is right in the face of Mark Brunell as he's trying to throw that football, he has to overguide him. And he's saying, well, I had to steer my guy in a direction. Maybe I did hold him a little bit, but he had to get out of the way so we could complete that pass.
If Jacksonville continues the success that they're having with their offensive line, it almost points to Tony Baselli saying, hey, you don't have to rush back. Make sure your ankle is completely healthy, because they're doing an excellent job thus far today.
Now Baselli had designs of playing in this game today until reality set in. 3rd and 17. Just beyond the outstretched arms of Keenan McCardell, and so that'll bring up 4th down, and Kansas City does get the stop after the turnover, and we'll take over.
I'm talking to Baselli and looking at him yesterday, he walked pretty good. I mean, it kind of surprised me. I thought that, he'd really have a serious limp, but no, he looked pretty good.
Baselli is so dominant on that left side that coming into this game, the Jacksonville Jaguars had a team average of 5.2 yards to the left side of the line, 2.8 yards to the middle and the right. That's how much they go to Baselli's side. So Marek Vanover takes the Barker punt out to the 25-yard line. 40-yard punt, 9-yard return. We're back in a moment to Jacksonville with the Jaguars in command.
The NFL on NBC is brought to you by the 1998 Honda Accord, an Accord like no other. By Advil, no non-prescription pain reliever is proven to work better than Advil. By Die Hard, America's most trusted battery. Die Hard, what's under your hood? And by Prime Star, satellite TV with no equipment to buy. For the best value in satellite TV, it's Prime Star.
Coming into this game, we thought it would be a cinch that Marcus Allen would reach another milestone. You can see he needs 24 rushing yards to become just the 7th player all-time to get 12,000 in his career, but he has not carried the ball once. He's been passed to once. And Kansas City begins with Donnell Bennett in the backfield, and Gannon goes to the air, incomplete, intended for Tony Gonzalez, and knocked away nicely by Davis. As you look at the 37-year-old all-time rushing leader is Walter Payton, and Marcus Allen down 7th on the list.
How long do you think it'll take Marcus Allen to catch Walter Payton? He'd be like around 45 years old.
He may play till then. At the beginning of the season, Marcus had made it known that, well, this was pretty much going to be it. But as the season has gone on, at 37 years old, he says, I may make that decision until next year. Kimball Anders with the carry. Travis Davis on the stop, but maybe it's time to get the crafty guy in there.
Well, I think if you guys are thinking that Marcus Allen at 37 should be the spark plug for this team, I think what we find is a problem with this offense. And Marty Schottenheimer said, I'm not conservative. I don't want to run the ball all the time. I would love for it to be Air Marty, but we don't have the components to do that. They tried to get Brett Perryman in here as a wide receiver. It just didn't work out. They need another big-time wide receiver to go in this West Coast passing offense to make it work.
Maybe they need Marcus to throw another touchdown pass. Gannon to Anders out of the backfield. Anders close to the first down.
He did not pick up the first down there. He made a little move back where he's trying to get away from a defender. They're short of the first down.
This is what you want to do when you catch a ball as a receiver. Know where you're at on the football field. You catch it, you turn upfield, even if you have any doubts about getting the first down. They're not even going to measure.
They are short, albeit less than a yard at the 35-yard line. Marcus Allen says, "Get me in there."
Wow, they're going to get back out there. They're going to go for it now.
Well, this is the short yardage, one of the best that's ever played the game. But the last time they had this situation, Donnell Bennett got the call. We'll see if Marcus is the decoy.
Timeout.
We'll have to wait for it all to unfold as Jacksonville calls a timeout.
That may be the only player who's relaxed about Marty Schottenheimer's decision. Probably doesn't know what's going on. I love this decision by Schottenheimer to go for it. If they don't get it here, what do they have to lose in this ballgame right now?
Marcus Allen, and Allen will get the first down. But it was very close.
Oh, that's going to be close.
Well, he needed to just nudge it across the 35.
I guess it all depends which official spots it.
I'll give it to the Hall of Famer.
Left foot spot or right foot spot, Dan?
So Marcus Allen with his very first carry of the game, and back off the field he trots.
They get some good push along the offensive line. You don't see the penetration by Jacksonville, but Marcus Allen runs into his own player and says, "Get out of the way, I need a yard."
Donnell Bennett has replaced Allen, 1st and 10. Chiefs with some hope here midway through the third quarter, trailing 24-3. Gannon on the run again. And Gannon gets it out of bounds, and that's a good example, Jim, of the mobility by Gannon.
Well, that's one thing he brings. He brings the mobility, he brings the quick feet to make something happen. I mean, I'm sure he would rather throw the ball on timing instead of having to rely on his quickness.
Yeah, but Gonzalez is going to be flagged on the play for holding. He's out there trying to assist Gannon on a block. They throw the flag on him, or block in the back.
Illegal block, number 88, 10-yard penalty, first down.
If Tony Gonzalez is in front of Rich Gannon, he's just out there trying to make something happen. He thinks that Gannon is going to cut inside. Gannon cuts back toward the sideline. He has the pressure on the guy slips away. Instead of getting his hands off him, he tries to block and gets the flag. You can fault a guy when he does something wrong, but when he's trying to put forth extra effort, it's hard to find fault in what they do.
So it's now 1st down and 19 as Marcus continues to pace the sideline.
comes the blitz.
Gannon gets it away, and it's complete. Another flag comes in as Greg Hill makes the reception.
Gannon's pass complete to number 27, Greg Hill. Ronaldo Wynn makes the tackle. Gain of 7.
And if this is against the Chiefs, they're beginning to back up via the penalties in a hurry.
The one thing coming, they have the end zone to stop.
Personal foul. Chop block. Number 51. Offense. 15-yard penalty.
Yeah, that's got to be number 61, Tim Grunhardt.
61.
Good correction there,
And
Jerry.
normally what happens is when this guy gets engaged with somebody else, one of these guys over here, he will then help that guy, and if he goes down low, see the engagement right there, and Zotz put his hands back as if to say, I wasn't touching that guy. I don't know if I like that call. He had started to go down low before Zotz had put his hands out to block him.
I don't like that call either because it was almost before. I don't even think he knew that he was going to be engaged by the guard.
Exactly.
Second down and forever now for Kansas City, back at the 13.
Didn't they just have a 4th and inches?
Gannon throwing this one away. Incomplete, intended for Tony Gonzalez. Let's go to New York and hear from Greg Gumbel once again. Greg.
All right, Dan, in Indianapolis, Boomer Esiason has come on and lit a spark for the Bengals. 2 possessions, 2 touchdowns. Carl Pickens floating along the back end of the end zone, 5-yard touchdown pass with the extra point. The Bengals on top of the winless Colts, 21-10, final minutes of the third quarter, Dan.
Misery continuing for the winless Colts. 24-3, Kansas City here.
Dan, I don't know about you, but isn't Jim younger than Boomer Esiason?
No. I wish I could say yes.
And on second down, Gannon off the mark again. Just the Kansas City offense just continuing to sputter when they need big plays, especially after being driven back in this huge hole by the penalties.
Well, that's one of the basic elements of the West Coast offense, throwing that slant pattern. Rich Gannon talked to us about the footwork, and that time in his footwork, he lazily goes back. He doesn't plant and hit that back foot, step up and throw the football. And that's the second time that he has thrown the ball to his left. You see Hackett putting his hands up as if to say, I'm calling plays and he's just not delivering.
Gannon, with plenty of time, has to go underneath to Anders, and Anders is dragged down at the 19-yard line. This is an offense which kind of makes this whole thing even more puzzling. An offense that last week had the best rushing output of the season, Kansas City did. They racked up 183 yards versus the then top-ranked defense against the run, Pittsburgh.
Well, number one, you look at everything they're doing. I mean, yeah, you can look at all the numbers, but that time, Jacksonville really only rushed 3 guys. And when you rush 3 guys, that's 8 back there defending against the pass. And most receivers are going to be double covered then.
Well, obviously, they're forced to try and come back through the air here, and that's giving Jacksonville's defense an even easier time of it as far as expecting the pass. Barlow steps up to the 49-yard line, and Jacksonville will have decent field position, but the frustration continues for Paul Hackett and KC. Kansas City's offense taking a rest, and as the defense now on the field trying to stop Jacksonville once again, but Brunell and his team with excellent field position again. A hard hit provided by Mark McMillan on Keenan McCardell. Knocks the ball loose. NFL season extends to the World Wide Web on NFL.com. It's the league's official website. You can visit it for all the scores and stats, including a complete roundup of the weekend scores and actions, plus chat live with some of the NFL's biggest stars. It is all at NFL.com. Natron Means in the backfield for Jacksonville. As you look at the totals, heavily in favor of Jacksonville. Means trying to find a hole on the right side, but this has been an impressive showing by Jacksonville's offensive line. Again, revamped with Baselli out injured.
that's the thing Mark Brunell told us, that he was happy that they have offensive linemen that can pretty much move anywhere on the front five and play in any position. I mean, that's a big asset for a team.
Weidel, who had been the starting center until a couple of games ago, Michael Cheever taking over for him, stands on the sidelines with Baselli for the first time, probably first time ever. On 3rd and 7, Brunell fires out of the shotgun, complete to Jimmy Smith. Mark McMillan made a nice play on Smith, and they exchange pleasantries after battling each other most of the day.
Yeah, it's funny to see Mark McMillan in such a physical role. But for the Kansas City Chiefs, now time becomes their worst enemy. They have 19 minutes in this ball game. To this point, they haven't been able to generate any offense. The defense is getting tired of going out onto the football field and having to give the offense another chance to do so. They need for the offense to produce so that they feel like their work has been warranted on the football field.
Vanover calls for the fair catch at the 11, and on hindsight, he might have had a chance to return that and get the Kansas City Chiefs better field position.
You're watching the NFL on NBC.
Frustrating day for Rich Gannon and the Kansas City offense, again filling in for Elvis Gerbach. The backup quarterback is Pat Barnes, who has yet to play, but look at the 2.5-yard average there. There's Pat Barnes, who would feel very comfortable in this West Coast offense as Greg Hill gets the call. Barnes was at Cal when Steve Mariucci was the coach there, but Barnes, the 4th-round pick and the rookie out of Cal.
Well, I think the tough thing about inserting Pat Barnes in this situation is you're down by 21 points. And obviously, it can't all fall on Rich Gannon's shoulders. The other guys around him have to be able to come up with some big plays. But Pat Barnes is the guy who really they have to turn to next. And you have to look, if Gerbach is going to be out for a while, who can best move this football team?
On 2nd and 8, Gannon slings it to the near side, and Kimball Anders, short of the first down, chased out of bounds just across the 20.
This team just doesn't seem to have the energy. You're wondering if the big win on Monday night against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then really the devastating loss to lose Elvis Gerbach, to lose Ted Pops, and you're all week long you're telling yourself it's not going to affect us, it's not going to affect us. Well, it has affected them, and they haven't been able to rebound from it yet.
Well, you try to convince your team of that, you know, even a Monday night, a big loss here, you could have somebody step up. They need a spark, and they need it right now.
Dave Zott down on one knee.
Dave Zott, the left guard, part of the strength of that offensive line for Kansas City in his 8th year.
There's Ralph Tam, a longtime 49er, a guy who's been in this league for about 10 years and has been primarily a backup, but he had some good years with the San Francisco 49ers filling in. And you really look at this Kansas City Chiefs team, they become a conduit. Everything that San Francisco seems to discard, they pick up.
Isn't that the truth? Especially at the quarterback position.
So back out Gannon goes, and off the field goes Zott, replaced by Tam, who also is the team's long snapper.
Well, you saw him putting on his gloves. You know, he's standing there on the sideline without those punching gloves, and he puts those on, and if he has to snap for a punt or a field goal, rather, he'll pull those off, discard them to the side. But right now, he has to keep those hands in punching order.
The way the Chiefs have been playing, he's going to be taking those things off and on, off and on, off and on.
So on 3rd and less than a yard, Marcus Allen is the deep back. And Marcus will get the call, and that nice cut back out to the outside.
And that's 12,000 yards right there.
Dana Hall finally runs him out, but Marcus Allen picks up the yardage emphatically with that gain of 30. Now just the 7th running back in history with 12,000 plus on the ground.
And a guy who has been so stellar in his career in short yardage situations, vaulting over the top. We all know he has more touchdowns rushing than any person. For him to go over the 12,000-yard barrier on a 3rd and 1 is very prophetic.
Congratulations. He deserves it. I mean, that's a lot of yards, a lot of pounding.
Ball squarely at the 50. Gannon on play action. Lofting it to the near sidelines to Rison. That is incomplete. And Andre Rison is now kept to just 2 catches. They came in the first half. 2 catches for 20 yards for Rison. He's been kept silent ever since.
The Chiefs really don't have a speed receiver. Andre Rison is now 30. He probably has lost some of the zip that he had when he first came into this league with the Colts in his earlier days from the Falcons when he could just blow by people. And on the other side, Lake Dawson, we talked about the rookie Kevin Lockett, but he hasn't seen the field except for a couple of plays now. Now he's in opposite Rison. If you're going to take your shots down the field, you take them to the fresh young legs.
Lockett is in there on 2nd down and 10. Gannon takes a look, fires complete to Greg Hill, and Hill close to another first down at the 40.
Complete to number 27, Greg Hill. Dave Thomas makes the tackle.
And Dave Thomas delivered a big lick on Greg Hill at the tail end of that play. And one thing I don't like about shuttling in your players, and Greg Hill's going out with that shoulder, but when those running backs aren't playing every down, they make a play, they get up, and they look to the sideline. I'd rather see a guy just head back to the huddle, and if somebody's going to take me out, let him come and take me out. I'm not always thinking about leaving the game.
Hill's catch good for the first down. Gannon spots Rison on the left side and still can't deliver the football his way. Deion Figures was on the Spiderman there.
Gannon's pass intended for Andre Rison. Deion Figures.
Jeff Criswell is slow getting up off the ground, and when you start to go down their depth chart, they didn't activate Steve Wallace for this game. The next guy is Tom Barnt, and Barnt goes both offense and defense. Zott may come back in, and we talked about the Jacksonville Jaguars having to shuffle their offensive line. These guys are now going to have to shuffle players in different positions.
That is Marcus Spears, number 70, who's playing now in just his 2nd game of the season. He joined Kansas City as a free agent back in September, spent training camp with the Green Bay Packers, an original draft pick by the Bears 3 years ago. So slowly Kansas City losing some of that offensive line.
The worst part about it is blind side is left tackle.
But Gannon trying to keep the drive alive, and that one is picked off. Deion Figures stepped in front of Rison. And for Figures, that is his 4th interception of the year. He leads the team in that category, and Jacksonville comes up big.
Deion Figures, his vision is directly in at the quarterback. Andre Rison is lined up wide. He can pattern read the split and know that Rison is going to run a quick slant, 1-2, and he jumps directly on the ball. They've tried that play on that side. They've overshot the receivers. That time, Figures is good that the ball was on target because he gets an interception.
Plus, he knew he had backup. It was 2 deep coverage. He knew that if he went by him, he had the safety back there.
Jacksonville takes over, a minute and a half left in the 3rd quarter with a 24-3 lead. And you can bet they'll take some time off the clock. James Stewart, as another flag comes flying in from the backfield. He's close to the marker. And the holding call quickly called by Jerry Markwright.
Number 76, offense, 10-yard penalty, first down.
Rich Tilsky, who's moved over to the left guard position after being the starter at right guard, called.
That's the thing with holding. The official makes sure everybody knows what number is doing the holding. That's the thing with offensive linemen sometimes. Oh, now do you have to let everybody know who was holding?
I think of Rich Gannon, when the day doesn't go well, you end up sitting all alone.
So on 1st and long, bursting up the middle is James Stewart. gain of 12. Anthony Davis got some help from Reggie Tung to bring Stewart down, but Stewart, who has a couple of 100-yard games in his career, getting some good chunks here. Anthony Davis, the leading tackler for Kansas City, slow and getting up. First down rushing, James Stewart has been the man today for the Jaguars.
And when you can pick up 5.5 yards on first down, you then dictate to the defense what you want to do. Run, pass, anything that you want to pull out of the bag works.
So now they have a reasonable 2nd and 8, and Atron Means with a call. Close to the first down at the 45. James Hasty ran Means out. Well, tough day for Rich Gannon. Again, just making his 4th career start for Kansas City. A guy that's waited for his chances. Started so many games for the Vikings a few years back, but the first game he gets a chance coming back in for Elvis Gerbach. It's been a tough day.
It has, but one thing you have to realize is when a quarterback in the NFL, you're going to be down by 20, 21 points at times. There's still a lot of time left in this football game. He's got to realize that. He's got to get his team together, get them all positioned where he needs them.
On 3rd and 2, Kansas City's defense rises to the occasion there.
Yeah, and you know, every time in this half when they have been given good field position, the guys in the red have gone out there and played well defensively. The spark that they need now is for their offense to rise up and do something for them, because they can't continue to play without the emotion given back.
Into the 3rd quarter, back after these messages from your local station.
This telecast is presented by the authority of the National Football League and is intended for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or other use of this telecast without the express written consent of the NFL is prohibited.
Look at the scoring by quarters. Scoreless 3rd quarter. Jacksonville.
I don't care about the scoring. I want to get on one of those boats.
Go ahead, James.
I can find Andre Rison's ring in the river down there.
Vanover at the 10. Kansas City looking for some sort of spark. Vanover is losing yardage, and he's dragged down at the 8 or 9 yard line. 45-yard punt. -1 return by the flashy Vanover.
You can't fault him because he wants to try to make something happen. If it's going to be, if the offense can't do something, special teams got to try to find a way to make something happen. It just wasn't there that time. You can't fault him for an effort.
And Rich Gannon continuing to lead the Kansas City offense. It'll be interesting to see the talk in Kansas City this week, if indeed Paul Hackett and Marty Schottenheimer are critical of the way Rich Gannon ran this offense today. Gannon steps up and completes this one to Marcus Allen, his first catch of the game. They went to him way back in the first half, and he dropped the screen. Brant Boyer puts the clamps on Allen.
Yeah, you know, earlier I said, you know, if you're waiting for a 37-year-old guy to give you a spark, you're in trouble. You know, when they anointed Greg Hill as the starter running back, he has not been able to kind of fill that bill that they needed. And perhaps Marcus Allen, who had hinted at retirement, there may be a bond issue. You hear all this voting about stadium. There may be a bond issue to bring Marcus Allen back next year.
Marcus Allen. And the play stopped by flags.
Prior to the snap, number 62, false start, offense, 5-yard penalty, 2nd down.
Well, that's the bad news for Marty Schottenheimer, the penalty, but the good news is that all of the respective players are in their respective slots again on Kansas City's offensive line. Criswell, Zott, Grunhard, Shields, and Parker. Now they're faced with a 2nd down and 8 at the 11. Trailing 24-3 in the opening seconds of the 4th. And Gannon gives it to Allen. And that'll bring up 3rd down. Marcus Allen with his 5th career touchdown pass last week, which ended up providing the winning points in Kansas City's Monday night victory over Pittsburgh.
And it's kind of funny, every time you see something with Marcus Allen, what comes to mind? His age. Everybody always brings his age. Because I know I'm 37 years old too, but to take a pounding like he does, that's unbelievable.
On 3rd and 3, Gannon scans the field and gets away from a Jacksonville Jaguar and picks up the first down. Nicely done by Gannon. Gain of 8.
Smart thing here is he knew when to get down. I mean, he wanted to get the first down. He's able to scramble, get away from a couple of defensive guys, and get enough for the first down. I don't know whether Marcus Allen can give him the spark or not, James, but you know somebody has to take a leadership role. When you have some young running backs in there, maybe they're not ready for quite that yet.
Yeah, I wonder if you reconfigure the lineup, put Marcus Allen in at starter, and make Greg Hill come off the bench. When he did that in years past, Greg Hill was pretty effective.
And on 1st down and 10, the Chiefs close to another one as Lake Dawson hauls it in. Dave Thomas on the coverage. And Kansas City with another first down and a glimmer of hope here.
Yeah, and Rich Gannon is trying to get the guys on the ball. You know, you don't have a lot of time. 3 scores get you back into it, but you need that first score to establish yourself that you're in this ballgame.
A hurry-up offense by Kansas City. Out in the flats is Tony Gonzalez for a short gain of a yard or 2.
And they need to do that. I think they needed to do that earlier in the 3rd quarter and not wait so long for it. But this is something that you have to look at. They have to get going. I mean, you have to take one play at a time. And I know that's an old saying, but the thing is, you try to make the big play all the time, it's just not going to work. You got to be able to dump it off when you have to, but try to complete that 10, 12-yard pass. Move it down the field. Don't think that all of a sudden I have to go for that bomb every time.
Yeah, often more times than not, you end up spinning your wheels even more and falling further behind. On 2nd and 8, across the middle, and again it's Gonzalez. Nice move by Tony into Jacksonville territory to the 49.
Yeah, we talked to Marty Schottenheimer yesterday, and he said Tony Gonzalez is going to be a star in this league regardless. He can out-muscle any defensive back that you put on him. He can outrun linebackers. It's just a matter of time before he becomes a major star in this league.
3 catches for 35 yards for Gonzalez. Make that 4 catches. And he's close to another Chief first down. Eddie Robinson brought him down.
All of a sudden, you see the Jacksonville Jaguars defensive backs settling off a little bit. Linebackers taking a little drop. They're saying, if you're going to beat us, you're going to dink and dunk it. And that's exactly what Rich Gannon's doing right now. He's taking what the defense is giving him.
And a 6 by Gonzalez. Over the middle again to Gonzalez. This is not a recording brought down by Eddie Robinson.
Maybe he needs to, they know that they're going to throw to Gonzalez. Maybe he needs to look downfield a little bit more. They need a play, maybe a 10, 15-yard play. You keep doing this, all of a sudden you're going to be down to 6, 7 minutes in the game and still down 21 points.
Well, you know, Tony's huffing and puffing a little bit. Again, and this time goes to Gonzalez again.
But see, Gonzalez is used to this. The guy played basketball at Cal.
This is a fast break.
That time he's split out wide. He moves out as a wide receiver. There's no one over him. There's nobody in space. You don't have a guy covering you. Give me the ball.
Five in a row to Tony Gonzalez. If they make it 6 in a row, I'm leaving. Get it off the mark, and it's intercepted by Chris Hudson. And Hudson stripped of the ball. Danon Hughes picks it up for the touchdown.
That's the 2nd week that Danon Hughes has come up with the improbable touchdown. Last week, the reception from Marcus Allen. That time, and that play is designed. I've seen that play on the wall in the Kansas City locker room.
Yeah.
Throw it to Hudson, let him run around, somebody strip him,
Look who
get
gets
the ball back.
I believe it was Rison.
Well, he tries to squeeze it in to the wide receiver, Lake Dawson. And guys just continue to hustle, continue to move around. You're right. Andre Rison gets in there with the strip. And you can see how tired these guys are. I mean, he picked that ball up. The legs are heavy. He gets into the end zone.
Well, they needed a spark. They got one now.
Stoyanovich makes it 24-10 with still plenty of time left. It looked like disaster for Kansas City, but they turn it into a touchdown.
The NFL on NBC is brought to you by Oldsmobile and your local Oldsmobile retailers. By the Principal Financial Group for over a century, your edge in retirement insurance and investment products. And by 1-800-COLLECT, the way we call collect today.
Jacksonville cruising until the recent touchdown by Kansas City.
Look at Jim Kelly go, though.
You didn't know I could do that, did you, James?
I didn't know you could do that.
He moves faster on water than he does on the ground.
I'd have to agree with you.
Well, Chris Hudson stripped by Andre Rison. The 7-yard return for the touchdown by Danon Hughes. And Kansas City, all of a sudden, is now out of it at 24-10 with 9:48 left. Willie Jackson takes in the Stoyanovich kick, finds a seam on the right side, and spins his way to the 33-yard line. Let's take a look back at the bizarre turn of events for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Well, after going to Gonzalez for about 10 times in a row, he didn't want to go to him. He decides to get the ball to Lake Dawson. Dawson stops on his route. Thomas is there to get the deflection. The ball goes up in the air. Hudson picks it off. He goes left. He goes up the middle. He goes back to the right. And Spider-Man comes in and gets some web on that ball. And
well, here's an interesting twist. Rob Johnson is in the game for Jacksonville. Again, it was Rob Johnson who directed Jacksonville in the first game when Brunell had the preseason knee injury. The injury report now on Brunell is a bruised hip. So Johnson takes over the controls as Brunell watches.
And we talked to Coughlin yesterday, and we've talked about that high ankle sprain all day long. He said that Rob Johnson is still limping from that sprain that he took in week 1. So here's a guy who's been hurt for the last 9 weeks. Now he's forced into the ball game.
Well, the injuries continue for Brunell, who recently also dislocated his middle finger. That has been swollen on his throwing hand, but Rob Johnson comes into the game and takes a sack. That'll bring up third down when we come back, but let's first head down south to Florida. Greg.
All right, Dan, it's taking place in Miami, and the Jets' Adrian Morrell bursts through a line and scampers 43 yards for a touchdown. The Jets pull to within 24-17, just over 5 minutes to play, and the Jets have the ball in Miami territory, Dan.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Looks like that one may go down to the wire. Kansas City hoping they can put the pressure on Jacksonville here to get it down to the wire. But again, Rob Johnson, who earned a lot of points when he did take over for Mark Brunell as far as his toughness is concerned. You mentioned the high ankle sprain, and Rob Johnson's still feeling the effects of that just a little bit. Coming up next on most of these NBC stations, Game 2 of our doubleheader, it's the Patriots and the Bills from Rich Stadium. A key AFC East matchup coming up next as we continue our coverage on this Sunday of the NFL on NBC.
And when you look at this game with 9 minutes to play, your leader, Mark Brunell, is out. All of a sudden, the Kansas City seems like they're going to continue to play good defense because this whole second half, they shut Jacksonville out in the third quarter. They gave their offense numerous possibilities to score. They finally get a score. Momentum starts to shift a little bit here if they can stop them on third down.
First big test here for Johnson out of the shotgun, and down he goes again. Third sack of the afternoon now for Kansas City, and Anthony Davis got in there for that one.
That's pretty much covered sack. You look at the receivers downfield. Everyone was covered. Rob Johnson just did not want to force the issue. He didn't want to have that turnover, especially way down, backed up into their own territory. Smart move by holding
but if he doesn't want the turnover, why doesn't he throw the football away, avoid the sack, don't give them that mental momentum.
Not a great kick by Barker. Vanover has a chance at the 33. Looking to break that big one. Gets no further than the 33. Kansas City trailing 24-10. 8.5 left.
The NFL on NBC is brought to you by Domino's Pizza, delivering 1 million smiles a day. Call for pizza now and share a smile during the game.
Well, guys, all of a sudden the momentum has shifted. Kansas City in this ball game with 8.5 minutes left, and they have the ball.
Well, they have to do something right now. They can't afford a turnover. Rich Gannon's got to take control of the offense right now.
Rich Gannon is the quarterback as the Chiefs set up at the 34-yard line. Gannon hanging in the pocket, delivers a strike to Kimball Anders, and Anders should have the first down. He does. He's out to the 45-yard line.
You know, they tried to bring extra guys after him. They don't get to him. Rich Gannon stands back there very patient. He looks downfield, scans 1, 2, 3, 4 receivers. finally dumps the ball off, and they get a good positive gain out of it, and a first down.
Anders has 5 catches for 36 yards. That one good for the first down. And down goes Gannon right from behind. It's big Clyde Simmons.
Yeah, and Jeff Criswell is taking himself out of the game again. Spears will come back in. At the bottom of our screen, you see them, big guys going after each other. Criswell never gets his hands extended. He almost leads with the crown of his head. And when you lead with your head, the guy can just swim right around you.
Clyde with 2 sacks today. The career total now 108. That is the 5th sack by Jacksonville today. Gannon loses a ton. It's now 2nd down and 19. And he's going to run this one out. And still does not get back to the line of scrimmage.
What I don't understand is they're huddling up. They were successful before moving the ball down the field. What they need to do is go with that no-huddle offense, quick pace.
Don Davey is now the injured player for Jacksonville. And we've mentioned how unfortunate the Jaguars have been on the defensive line with John Yurkovich out with a broken leg and then Kelvin Pritchett being lost. They could ill afford to lose Don Davey.
Yeah, it would put them with just 2 rookie defensive tackles, Seth Payne and Ronaldo Wynn. 2 guys in their first year playing. Granted, they're playing well. One guy a first-round pick, the other guy an Ivy Leaguer. So you're awfully thin at that position, and there are not a lot of guys who are sitting at home watching television who are capable of playing on the defensive line right now.
Davey just signed a 2-year, $2.2 million contract extension this week. Very smart, heady player. Has a master's degree in mechanical engineering out of Wisconsin and was the very first 4-time academic All-America selection in NCAA history. Concern for him now is on the field with an injury. We'll be right back. And a quick glance at our Miller Time game summary. The numbers for Rich Gannon, the numbers for Mark Brunell. The unexpected today, a Jaguars team record 5 sacks. 2 of them by Clyde Simmons. Kansas City here faced with 3rd and 12. Gannon dumps off the screen to Kimball Anders, and Anders close to midfield. He'll be short of the first down, and at this stage of the game, guys, you go for it?
Sure, and I think Marty Schottenheimer and Paul Hackett with that call are thinking, we have 3rd and 12. We need to get back at least half the yardage. But getting back to those 5 sacks, the reason why it's so alarming, in the West Coast offense, you're thinking, get the ball away on rhythm. You don't think that you're going to produce sacks against a team that's proficient at getting rid of the football.
They need 5. And down goes Gannon for the 6th time. Tony Brackens, and the ball is loose. And Jacksonville recovers. Tony Brackens adds to his team-leading sack total. That's the 7th for Brackens this season.
When the game summary is written, you'll read about the quarterbacks, the wide receivers, and the running backs. But where this game has really turned is in the offensive line play of the Jacksonville Jaguars and also the defensive line play, getting their 6th sack there. Brackens and Simmons have just been too much for the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line to handle.
So with 6.5 left, Brunell fakes it to Means, and they go to Jimmy Smith, and this one is picked off by Mark McMillan. Rob Johnson, the quarterback, again with Brunell out injured, so it is Johnson who is picked off in the very first play, coming back in.
A great comment that Gunther Cunningham made about the Jacksonville Jaguars offense. Granted, they're going for the knockout play there, but he called them a frisbee offense. And I said, what do you mean by that? They can't resist throwing the thing around. I mean, they have a lead. All you have to do is pound down the field, run some clock off. But no, they want to throw it. And 9 times out of 10, throwing the ball is a good thing, but that 10th time is when you get in trouble. Now they give the Chiefs life again.
Yeah, they do it. And Rob Johnson thought he had a touchdown. He just laid that ball up, or he didn't fall through. He thought, easy touchdown, thrown back against the green.
4th interception on the season for McMillan. Kansas City with 4 wides now. Given another chance to get back into this game by Jacksonville. Marcus Allen wisely getting out of bounds, but a flag comes in. Chris Hudson ran Marcus out. And that one will come back.
Holding number 79, offense, 10-yard penalty, first down.
Now the holding play will go on Dave Zott, but in defense of Dave, that play is designed to go up the middle. You hand the ball off, you expect the running back to go up the middle. And when you're run blocking, you're able to use those hands. You get them in the framework of the defensive lineman, and all of a sudden, that defensive lineman goes another direction because that back has then made a move away from where you're going. You continue to grab, the guy gets away from you. You don't want to let him go, and you end up holding.
Well, it's worth mentioning, as you see Marcus Spears next to Zott, Spears has been alternating with Jeff Criswell, who's been on and off the field. And Kansas City has been feeling some pressure from that side of the line. Gannon's pass complete at the 30-yard line to Danon Hughes. Kevin Devine on the coverage. Just the first catch for Hughes this game and his 5th all season.
You talk about that left tackle spot, which had been manned by John Alt for a number of years. He was forced into retirement this year because of his back, and they thought that Criswell would be able to pick up the slack, and he's had an up and down season.
Time really becoming a factor here now. Gannon to Lake Dawson.
Good job getting out of bounds.
Exactly what I was just going to say. Try to pick up half the yards. That's pretty much what Rich Gannon was thinking there. So let me get the football to him. Maybe he can turn upfield and get a little bit more, but right there, getting out of bounds and stopping the clock.
Yeah, but what they have to realize is before the 5-minute mark, they get out of bounds. When they spot the ball, then they start the clock again.
Gannon pumps it, goes down the sidelines, and Andre Rison makes the catch.
Great job by Rison. You know that when you run an out and up and that ball hangs up in the air, that the safety is going to come out of center field and get a hit on you. That time Rison is looking back, waiting on the ball, and Chris Hudson just draws a bead on him.
And that was a perfect thrown ball by Rich Gannon, too. He hung in the pocket. He wasn't able to step into his throw. That was pretty much all arm. Put it right on the target.
Rison's first catch since the second quarter, good for 24 yards. Kansas City still hanging in. Gannon's pass this time dropped by Tony Gonzalez. All over him was Eddie Robinson.
They tried a little out and up move with the 2 wide receiver set on this side. Gannon didn't give it time to develop because it did open up, but we talked about that quarterback clock that guys have when they're standing in that pocket, and Gannon knows I've been dropped 6 times. If I get dropped the 7th time, it's going to take my team out of a position to maybe get another touchdown.
And James, you know sometimes, even if there's an incomplete pass, maybe get your team on the ball anyways. Go with the 2-minute drill, whether you complete it or not.
And they give it on the ground to Anders. Tries to stretch it out to the left side, and a beautiful move made by Anders inside the 25, and he's close to another first down, gain of 9. Anders has been huge through the air and on the ground.
Kimball Anders is kind of the MVP of this team. You know, this is the first season in the past 4 where he may not lead this team in receptions. He's led it 3 years in a row. Now he and Rison have that battle going.
He's got 6 carries for 52 yards, 3rd and short. Unable to hang on is Anders this time, so we sing his praises, and he drops a crucial 3rd down and a yard pass.
I still think, looking at the field, coming from that angle, that he's looking into the sun a little bit, and that was always at the top of my list of excuses as to why I dropped the ball. Sun was in my eyes.
Did you hear that quite a bit, Jim, in the Buffalo huddle?
Well, it really didn't apply in Buffalo because the sun never was shining.
I could get the sun in my eyes at night.
Snowflakes, right, James? Snowflakes in the eyes.
How about this? Kansas City has not been inside the 20-yard line today of Jacksonville. 4th down, gotta go for it. And Gannon stumbles after the play action, and Jacksonville has it again. just when you think Kansas City has some life, another big play in favor of Jacksonville.
And right there you saw his foot get caught up with Marcus Allen's foot. Obviously they were going to try a play-action pass. Rich Gannon had the option to go to his right. The if the pass isn't there downfield, he can take off and run for the first down. But the size 12 of Marcus Allen got caught on the size 11 and a half of Rich Gannon. And it has been a frustrating day in the coach's booth for both Paul Hackett and Gunther Cunningham.
Fourth turnover of the day for Kansas City, and all of them have come in the second half. Natron Means. This from a team that prides itself on the giveaway, takeaway, turnover ratio.
I don't think there's any chance that the Jacksonville Jaguars throw the football in this series of downs after what happened last time.
Second down and 5.
Again, Rob Johnson has come on in relief in this fourth quarter for Mark Brunell, out with a hip bruise. And Kansas City takes the second of their 3 timeouts, and they have 1 left, which stops the clock with 4:07 to go. Some of the other scores around the league, the Redskins all over Detroit. And how about Cincinnati pulling out the win over Indianapolis? Boomer Esiason replacing Jeff Blake in that game. Jeff Blake had his bell rung.
If you're in Indianapolis, can you say Peyton Manning?
Do you really think that might be the answer? I think they need more than just a quarterback.
Yeah, but I don't think that you can pass up a guy who will probably win the Heisman Trophy, even though he may not be having one of his best seasons. I don't think you can pass up a Heisman Trophy winner when you have that first pick, and you really do have a void at quarterback when you look at that roster.
When you look at all the Heisman Trophy winners at quarterback the last, 5-6 years, none of them have really panned out.
I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but you just can't pass up a player with that type of stature.
Means busting through into Chief territory. Jacksonville with another fresh set of downs. And now the time truly running out for Kansas City, and the offensive line up front continuing to do the job.
You put 2 tight ends in the football game, you get bodies on bodies, and you bring a fresh body into the football game in Natron Means. Early in the game, you have James Stewart slashing and dashing. Then you bring in the power for the knockout punch.
Natron Means, 11 carries, 57 yards for him, as once again Coughlin has chosen to go with that 1-2 punch in Stewart and Means.
And you always have a fresh running back in the football game. It doesn't matter. It's almost like having that receiver. If you are in a passing mode, to have an extra receiver that can come in. But when you have 2 running backs like Jacksonville, you got it made.
Jacksonville, with the game seemingly in hand, keeps it on the ground this time. Natron Means churning for yardage as Jacksonville turns closer to its 11th straight win at home. Not only 11 straight at home, but on their way to their 13th win in the last 14 games as you take a look at the home cooking streaks in the league.
Well, Green Bay won today, so that's +1. That goes to 21. Go 11 there, and pretty sure Denver will win up there because it's cold.
You know, that addition proving that Stanford degree...
I did not waste my engineering degree.
Was not a waste of time. And Means again. And on the flip side, you've got an interesting week in Kansas City as the Chiefs get ready to take on the leaders of the West, the Denver Broncos. They do have them at Arrowhead, where the crowd will be fired up, but not a good performance by Marty and the troops today.
And they played Denver in week 1, and after a long off season where they had acquired all this new offensive talent, they thought they would have something going on in that ball game. And I think the question marks are back again for Kansas City. Can we get things going offensively? The defense has played well except for a couple of big plays that they've given up. But if they've been there and let the offense have a chance to get back in this ballgame, He just couldn't muster it up offensively.
Means will be short. That'll bring up 4th down. It was Kansas City which lost at Denver in the opener of the season, 19-3. But that will be a key AFC West showdown next week at Arrowhead.
Yeah, you know that one of the toughest places to play in the National Football League is at Arrowhead Stadium. Those fans are just unbelievable. Probably one of the toughest places I've ever played, there and Three River Stadium.
So as we approach the 2-minute warning, it'll be up to Marty Schottenheimer and his brain trust in Kansas City to try to get things back on track for those visiting Broncos. 2-minute warning in Jacksonville. Marcus Allen and the Chiefs trailing 24-10.
I think with your quarterback out, backup in next week, the guy who really takes the leadership role on this team is going to have to be Marcus Allen. I mean, you know, wide receivers are nice to have, and Andre Rison has come through for them. But if a guy is going to motivate this team and get him to play better football offensively, whether he's on or off the field, it's going to be Marcus Allen.
Nearly blocked by Kansas City. Flag is down as Jacksonville had, well, 38-yard punt, and the flag could be roughing the kicker.
Well, they went for it, and Mark McMillan was the guy who was designated to try and be the punt blocker and stretched all of 5-7 out there.
Chiefs had everybody at the line, no one back.
Either roughing or just running in. Big difference between a first down and just 5 yards.
Running into the kicker, number 29, receiving team. Penalty is declined. First down.
See Barker smile at McMillan out there.
See McMillan come in now. If McMillan had been born 6'2", he has a block there.
Can you be born 6'2"?
He could have been born. You could be born 5'7". That's about. He was that height at birth.
He
I
hasn't
see
grown
6 pounds 2 ounces. I see.
Yeah.
That clarifies it. Well, 4 turnovers by the Chiefs in the second half proved to be too much to overcome. 6 sacks. Also delivered on Gannon today, throwing this one out of his own end zone. Down the sidelines to Joe Horn. And Joe Horn makes his first reception of the season.
And Joe Horn has worked more at cornerback this year than he has at wide receiver. So they're going way down the list of guys. A guy who I'm surprised doesn't play in the offensive sets is Tamarick Vanover. A great kick returner, but just doesn't have those same skills to convert them to playing wide receiver.
Horn, a 5th-round pick last year. That one off the mark of Rison, incomplete. Clock stops with 1:09. Gannon looks to the sidelines. What do you got next, Coach?
He's begging for that reception right there. He's like, look at any official that's close by. I caught it.
There it is, the turnover story. All 4 of the Chiefs' turnovers coming in the second half. Second half of this game, again, 6 sacks delivered by the Jacksonville defense, 2 by Clyde Simmons.
And very uncharacteristic for this team. That in the 90s, they've had more takeaways and giveaways than any team in professional football.
It's an amazing giveaway-takeaway ratio, James. It's plus 98 turnover ratio in the 90s.
And what the New York Giants are second with plus 52.
And it leads the NFL by a whopping margin. So it is surprising to see.
It's starting to shrink today.
It took a shot today. Well, we talked about Kansas City facing Denver next week. In the meantime, as Tom Coughlin puts it, Jacksonville holds and controls its own destiny in an excellent position. Last year, they started 4-7 before they had to rally to the AFC title game. They're going to be in great shape after after this win, as Tony Gonzalez hauls in another catch, after this win, Jacksonville will move to 7-3, and then again, 3 of its next 4 at home, so it won't be the finish in a flurry by Jacksonville this year as they had to do last year.
Yeah, but what Coughlin said about this ball game and holds true for the rest of the season, it's not who we play, but it's how we play. When we go out and dictate the game, good things are going to happen to us.
Now the Chiefs just trying to pick up the first down on the sneak. Flags come in. Jacksonville says we stopped him, but we'll wait for the call with 37 seconds left.
Right there, it almost looked like the center and quarterback didn't know that they were running the quarterback sneak unless the defensive lineman just pretty much held up that whole offensive line there. It's like Gannon ran into a brick wall.
While the clock was running, we had a false start on number 84 offense. That's a 5-yard penalty, and there will be a 10-second runoff.
You know, I'd mentioned that 10-second runoff earlier, but it must be only in the last 2 minutes of the ball game, not in the first half. I misspoke. I had the wrong page of the rule book open. But it gives them another chance to pick up a first down, because they didn't have it on that quarterback sneak.
We won't tell Jerry Seaman.
Now, if we can just get him to iron out that thing about the illegal lineman downfield.
We'll make sure we put your name behind that one. That's good.
4th down and 6. Gannon flips it out to Anders. Anders almost got loose. Did he lose the ball? Appeared to have been stripped. And now we've got the old rugby scrum, and a flag flies.
Probably personal fouls both ways.
And in a game which is run long anyway, Tom Coughlin probably wonders if we'll have daylight by the time this one ends. 13 seconds left, and we'll take this opportunity to remind you, coming up next, it is the Patriots at Rich Stadium in Buffalo. Both of those teams 5-4 in the AFC East. That game coming your way next.
We have offsetting personal fouls. Number 97 defense, number 79 offense. Penalties offset during the dead ball. First down.
All that for that little information. That was surprising.
Gannon surveying the field, dragged down from behind by Joel Smengi. And that will be the final play of the game. Almost fittingly that Gannon is dropped to end it. Kansas City falls to 7-3. Jacksonville moves to 7-3 as well. The final score 24-10. Coming up next, New England taking on Buffalo. For Jim Kelly and Jim Lofton, I'm Dan Hicks. So long from Jacksonville. This has been a presentation of the NFL on NBC, the network of the Super Bowl.